All right, welcome back to the Blaze audience. Today I have Blake Fischer with me. He's homeless.
It's true.
Politically homeless anyway.
Metaphorically.
Host of the Homeless Conservative podcast. And from what I can tell, from what I can find, you've been at this for, is it 2 years or is it a little longer?
A little longer, but basically 2 years. Yeah, I started a couple summers ago.
Okay. I was wondering about that because when I was listening to your show and looking at kind of what you're doing, we're a little similar, except I use a lot more colorful language than you do, from what I noticed.
Yeah.
You're a lot more reserved than I am when it comes to that.
It's because I know my mom listens and I know she'll get on to me if I no. I mean, it's also just sort of my personality, I guess. I mostly curse at myself in real life, not at other people.
I hear you. Why don't you explain, because the reason I want you to explain why you consider yourself homeless, because I believe where you're at right now represents a lot of America, to be quite honest. I feel like a lot of people don't believe they're necessarily like right or left necessarily. They have like a leaning, right? Maybe a proclivity towards certain beliefs or certain ways of living, but not necessarily like all the way over the fence anymore. And that's kind of my take. I wonder what led you to where you're at now.
So I've been interested in politics for a really long time. I would say I'm a political junkie, and I have been for much longer than normal people are. And I do it, and I would not suggest most people pay as close attention as I do. I don't think it would actually be healthy if everyone did. I don't think everyone needs to. And
it's not healthy.
So it's not. It's like, and especially if you don't like put some guardrails up to like things that I'm not going to read because they're just going to make me furious all the time and stuff. So, I've always been interested in this stuff, but I've always been really interested in the ideas and the principles. And I spent my like teens and 20s, arguing with friends. And I spent my 20s in a band. So pre-iPhone, you had a lot of time to just like be in the car talking with people, right? So yeah. I had these kind of discussions with friends all the time that I disagreed with. It was never not civil. Like it was always like I'm a musician. Most of my friends are more liberal than I am. Just the nature of that
nature of the arts,
right? Yeah. The arts and stuff. I live in Oklahoma, the reddest state in the country. If you're looking at like the last 3 elections have been every single county went Republican. So there's not much, that's very much you are in one of those two worlds. And there is maybe less of the middle thing you were talking about as far as the nuance there. But the point is I can have these conversations with anyone. And then I felt like Donald Trump came along and he's a symptom of the problem, but not sort of escalated under him to where the Republican Party specifically stopped being about ideas and started being about whatever he said. And that might change day to day. And we were abandoning things that I really cared about. Like I think the Constitution is the thing that matters. And if it's not that way in the Constitution and we're doing it a different way and it's not working well, it's like, well, maybe we should do it the way that the Constitution says we do it. And so I don't like the executive branch getting more and more powerful all the time and the parties just conceding that power to them from Congress, which is supposed to be the more powerful branch. Like they're not co-equal. Like Congress has way more powers written in the Constitution than either of the other branches. And they've just like over decades and decades, I mean, really it's going back 100 years, they've just slowly capitulated that. And I felt like it really ramped up with Trump specifically. And I could just see the writing on the walls of like, this does not end well because all this does is give someone else permission to do the bad thing. And then because they do the bad thing, Republicans come back and go, well, Biden did the bad thing. And so it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And at the same time that was happening, where I was just worried about some of the procedural and institutional things that were going on under Trump, that I could be like, even if I agree with him on the principle here that we're talking about, like I would be like, for example, I would say, I'm not really in the middle. I'm very conservative, but that definition has changed completely. Like now the definition of conservative is, are you MAGA? Do you support every single thing that Trump says, even if it's different than the thing he said yesterday? Conservative is saying, I think the Constitution matters. And I think that the institutions do matter. And I do think that we're blowing all this up for no reason. And that just became out of, like, I'm still a Republican. I've not left the Republican Party, But the Republican Party does not want anything to do with me. I mean, I'm told all the time. I get more hate from Republicans than I do from Democrats because they just see the disloyalty and say, well, that's it. Like that's what being a conservative means now. And I just go, I don't think that's true. And I don't think that should be how we think of politics at all. I do not like cult of personality stuff. And that's what politics has completely become. And then, like I said, this is not solely a Trump issue. I had massive problems with the Democrats idolized and made Obama a sort of messiah figure within their party. And the country kind of went crazy for some of that stuff that just was, he got a Nobel Peace Prize without doing anything. There was some weird messianic stuff going on with Obama too. This is not just a Trump problem. It's just that I am more comfortable saying, I'm going to call out my side because I think there's plenty of stuff going on. The reason I started the podcast, plenty of stuff where the right is calling out the left. And if you turned on, well, I did this one time. I loved late night television as a kid and stuff. I love Letterman. I love Craig Ferguson, several of them. But I hadn't watched it in a long time. It's just not that interesting to me. And as much as I like politics, I don't want my entertainment at night to be all about politics. And that's what all the shows had come about. But when Greg Gutfeld took over, like he was winning the ratings in the late night war on Fox News. And I never watched his show. And I was just like, oh, I'm kind of interested in seeing, that's interesting, right? It's at least interesting that more people are watching that on cable than they're watching the CBS late show that's been there for 30 years and all these kind of staples. And Will Bear show and his on the same night. And you would not have known that the same things, you could not tell they were recorded the same day because this is during the Biden administration. And you could tell, like, Colbert said about Democrats, Biden, even though some of it's so plainly easy to make the joke about, and you're supposed to be a comedy show. Same thing on the other thing. Nothing bad about Trump, nothing bad about MAGA, nothing bad about Republicans. And I just was like, this is not good for America. This is not good for Americans. It's not good for an informed citizenry. And I feel better about being like, look, I am for on most of the issues. If we actually sat down and said, like, how do you feel about pick it, free markets or free speech or, pick your thing, gun rights, whatever the thing is, we probably agree on those things, except that most Republicans have abandoned those things. They're loyal to Donald Trump. And especially the leaders in the Republican Party have done that because they have to. They're bullied, they're threatened. And it really bothers me when people pretend to believe something that they don't. I think there's nothing worse than that. And in politics, it's just not necessary. And so I wanted to start this thing, be like, hey, I think there's a lot of people that, I agree. I think there's a lot of people that feel the same way as I do, probably. They feel like neither party really defines them well, because those parties have demanded, and the Democrats do this too, where they've demanded you have to be with us on, and then there's a big long list of things that you have to agree with them on. And so there are no pro-life Democrats anymore. There are no pro-choice Republicans anymore. There are no Second Amendment Democrats, Republican. It's like you pick those big issues that we've been fighting about for a long time, but it's gotten even more minutia than that. Every single thing that happens every day becomes, are you pro this or against it? It's my least favorite question. Are you pro-Israel or anti? I'm like, you can't boil down a giant geopolitical situation into, are you for it or are you against it? Because it's turning us versus them. It's turning everything into, they are evil, they are the bad guys. And I'm just like, that is not the way to do politics. I can call out bad ideas. I think we're supposed to keep politicians in check no matter which party they're from. Like, we are the people that hire and fire them. This is not, they're on my team and therefore I defend their actions and I attack the other guy. But that's what politics has become for almost everyone else. I do think most of those people in the middle checked out entirely and they're not paying any attention because it's exhausting and because it is really gross. I mean, like, most people don't want to pay to it because I can see why you would just be like, this is gross. Why would I want to lie? So I'm trying to do something that is reasonable and brings facts to the table. That's the other thing that's missing in today's conference is like, if we can't agree on the basic facts first, then it's going to be really hard for us to move forward. And I just believe that we can have polite conversations with people where we disagree and still be friendly at the end.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's a long-winded way to say where I got here. This last couple weeks specifically has been like really overwhelming for me as far as some of the gross behavior that I feel like
get
is
you.
happening.
I'm going to pause for a second because
Yeah.
we're having a lot of dropouts with you coming in for some reason. I got a lot of the audio. So let me just pause for a second, then
Okay.
we're going to go right back, okay?
Cool.
All right, so before I had to tighten up a few things, you were talking about how gross everything has been lately. And I still, after everything you said, though, I still believe that you're representing more of how people feel now, because with everything that's happened, you're right. Like, the Conservative Party is not so much the Conservative Party that we know. It's really become the, it's almost like you have to be a cheerleader for the team, is the way I see it. And no matter what, you got to go for your team. Like, and that's the same on both sides, by the way. I see that no matter what, you just got to back them, and we're trying to push them over the line to gain points. And it's become so petty and more about who gets the win rather than who's really representing the people, I believe. And that's what I've been seeing. As far as events go, I mean, are we pointing towards, like, for example, everybody knows the whole thing happened with Charlie Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible. As much as that was horrendous, and this is my opinion, what I find horrendous is how it's become so politicized.
Mm-hmm.
He was a podcaster that challenged narratives, whether you believed in what he said or agree with him. Regardless, he was just kind of doing what you and I do on our shows. We're just trying to get people to talk and think about things, and there was no need for that. But I saw kind of what was going on. I didn't watch it because I didn't want to. I just felt by then I was kind of checked out with everything going on with his memorial. I mean, 10 hours long. It was a service. It was a sermon. It was a Christian concert, and then there was a little bit of remembrance, and then it looked like a WWE event. Mm-hmm. So I feel sorry for Erica, by the way, because I think she really wanted to honor her husband, but it looked like it got turned into something a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it did bring people together, whether good or bad, however you want to look at it. I'm sure most Democrats look at it as bad. But what is your thoughts on how that is affecting us moving forward? Because I'm sure that's a big part of it. And of course, we can do geopolitics later, because that's kind of like my thing. I love talking about that stuff for sure.
What's interesting about Charlie Kirk is that, like, I didn't, first of all, I'm not in the demographic. I'm 42. He's talking to college kids. So I'm not supposed to be probably watching Charlie Kirk all the time. It's just, there are demographics here. It is a money thing. There are people that, they know their audience. And to some degree, that's okay. Like, to some degree, it's good to know, like, my audience is, conservatives in middle America, or it's, like, that's fine. Like, now, I think too often in politics, we've gotten into this audience capture kind of thing where Fox News can't say, like, they're already dwindling viewership because their cable news is just getting older and older and older. And to a degree, like, Stephen Colbert has the same problem. Jimmy Kimmel has the same problem. Like, they're like I think Colbert's average age was like 62. The average, which means all those people are dying, and, like, your audience is just slowly disappearing. And so I get that, like, you're desperate to keep it and stuff. And what you end up doing is compromising what you believe, and you say things you don't believe to keep the audience around. I see this happening with the conspiracies that go on the left and the right all the time. It's like, once that's the audience that encourages you, with the racism that goes on both sides, like, it's like once you sort of, like, get a taste of that, your audience is not willing to have anything else. And so to me, there's just so much of that that's been going on specifically over the last 10 years, like, really bad. You've got people that 10 years ago, I'd say, I agree with, like, a lot of stuff. I think they write great stuff. I think they say great stuff. Tucker Carlson is a smart guy. I know he is. And yet it's Tucker Carlson today is unrecognizable from 20 years ago.
Yes. Yeah,
like,
he is.
In principle, in ideals, in everything. And I only can look at that and go, that's for money. Like, I don't believe anything else other than it's for money. JD Vance has been 4 different people in the 8 years we've known of him. It's like, which people are like, do you like JD Vance? I'm like, which version of JD Vance? I don't know. We've had 4 different versions in 8 years. Yeah. And so I don't trust that when people are not consistent. And so going back to the Charlie Kirk thing is, like, he's not someone that I loved. Like, I didn't like some of his style. I thought he had given up some of his principles that he believed in 10 years ago to jump on the populist bandwagon that had become the Republican Party, and to make more money and to have more influence. And you know what? This is not me trying to like say he did, like he still did amazing things. He went out there and talked to people who disagreed with him, which most people are not willing to do, frankly. Like most people are scared to death of actually having to have.
They're scared of confrontation.
They're scared of confrontation. They're scared that they don't. The truth is, most people are not well informed enough to really be spouting the things that they are on the internet.
That is also true.
Be it professionally or otherwise. And they know that if they actually had to talk to someone, and I run into this more with liberals than I do with conservatives, because the entire culture for my entire life, I'm inundated with the culture of the left. It's in Hollywood, it's in TV, it's in movies, it's in every magazine, it's in most of the media. It's like there's that bias that's there, and it's been there my whole life. And so I know how to deal with it. But I'll talk to a progressive that literally has never talked to another conservative in their life. They've never heard the argument. They've never considered it. And they don't even know the basic facts. Like I literally had a friend that one time thought you could just walk into Walmart and buy a gun. I was like, no, you have to pass a background check. He did not know you had to pass a background check. And I was like, well, I can see why you'd be upset about that. But it's your fault that you didn't know that. You know what I mean? Like I have access to the same information you do. We all have the internet.
Yes.
It's made us all dumber somehow, even though we have access to all the information in the world. So when it came to the Charlie Kirk assassination, the first thing, I mean, I've been sounding alarm bells for the entire time I've had this podcast, and even before that with friends and stuff, that this is escalating. Like it's getting worse and worse and worse, in the sense that, you know, rattle off all the near assassinations that we had that we called assassination attempts. And we had, it just came out this week that the guy that was outside Brett Kavanaugh's house had a plan to assassinate 3 of the justices. We obviously had like someone break into Nancy Pelosi's house and attack Paul Pelosi with a hammer. We had January 6th. We had Black Lives Matter riots. We have the Minnesota lawmakers that were targeted for assassination. We had just thing after thing. And most of them, fortunately, were unsuccessful. The Minnesota ones were successful assassination attempts because they're state lawmakers. I don't think they had the impact. And that was on a holiday weekend or something too, I think. It was July 4th or something. So I think it kind of got...
They unfortunately weren't a world-renowned name, so people kind of they recognized them, but unfortunately they didn't get the attention they deserved.
It kind of got swept up in a news cycle, which is unfortunate. And it seemed more like... And here's the other thing, is that for the most part, Josh Shapiro's house gets firebombed on Passover, what is clearly an anti-Semitic attack. And we just what seems like happened with every time we dodged the bullet, metaphorically and actually in Donald Trump's case, I feel like it gave people an excuse to feel like it wasn't that big of a deal that it almost happened. And so, and then also it gave a permission that said, first of all, no one ever claimed any responsibility when it was their side that did it. And what I kept saying over and over again is every time one of those things happened, I was like, this is an opportunity for that, if the violence came from the left, for the leaders on the left to say, you know what, we've probably contributed to this by me calling Donald Trump the worst threat to calling him fascist or calling him Hitler, or maybe Joe Biden should have looked in the mirror and come out on public and said, you know what, in 2012, I told a group of black people that Mitt Romney was going to put them back in chains if he got elected. Well, and that was wrong of me.
He said a lot of things in his career.
He said a lot of things, right? And and Donald Trump, obviously, I thought maybe we could get a change of heart from him when he almost gets assassinated, to be like, maybe I've been contributing to some of this rhetoric.
True.
And yet every single time it happened, we got zero remorse from the side that should claim some responsibility. And this is not me trying to say that the left is responsible for when a single crazy person goes and tries to kill someone on the right. However, those people are absolutely influenced by the rhetoric that happens all the time. And when you tell people over and over again that they have no agency at all to control anything. So elections don't matter because they're stolen. We don't even admit we lose anymore. We just say the other side stole the election. So we're adding distrust to the electoral system. And Democrats and Republicans have both done that. It goes all the way back to George W. Bush with Democrats doing it. And then Hillary Clinton calls Donald Trump an illegitimate president in 2016. She kind of does some of that stuff. Donald Trump takes it to another level in 2020, for sure. And so, okay, elections can't be trusted. Your politicians can't be trusted. Republicans, if you're a Democrat, it's the Supreme Court is corrupt. They're in the tank for Donald Trump.
Right.
Well, so you tell people every single way of your civic duty, you can't do anything about it because it's all controlled. Or like, let's really go to the thing that's happening on the right and the left now. Everything is the Jews. Like everything is blamed on, like the Jews are in nefarious control of everything now.
I know.
And so what do you think's going to happen? Some people are going to go, the only option I have is to use violence to stop that from happening. And most of the time they're disturbed. Like the Paul Pelosi attack, that guy's disturbed. The congressional baseball shooting is a little bit of that. The Gabby Gifford one is definitely like, that guy is insane. He thought grammar was controlling his mind or something. These are people that are susceptible to the violent kind of stuff. And I have some theories about most of the problems with the kind of violence like that. But then Charlie Kirk comes along and it's like, that guy was not crazy. I've not seen any indication that he was not in his right mind. He absolutely was influenced by the left ideology. And yet the left still can't own it. They're trying to pretend this guy's MAGA or something. And I just go, there's not been a more clear-cut case of someone like we've got the text messages. He said, I'm doing this because some hate you just can't negotiate with. And then you look at polls on like, what are our feelings on free speech? And most people think that the First Amendment goes too far in protecting free speech. And like, yeah, you're going to get violence. And what I hoped was maybe this will finally wake people up, because I'm expecting the word attempt after assassination. And yet this time it was just assassination. Like he's dead.
We hope it'll wake people up. And we also hoped it would unite people, but it literally didn't. It just drove the divide, even wider. The wedge was much, much greater now. So I was hoping that regardless of party, people could look at this and say, holy shit, like what just happened? And that's not what happened. Everybody got more fanatical. And look, what you just spoke about is what I've been talking about for quite some time as well. I don't think this is a mistake. These messages, this rhetoric is very intentional. It's absolutely psychological conditioning, period, no matter how you want to slice it.
Yeah.
And it is a
I agree.
playbook out of the communist playbook, literally. As the Germans would say in the Nazis, when the Nazis were in power, say a lie enough and it becomes a truth. And both sides, by the way, are doing this. It's not just the Democrat Party. It was primarily before, started with Obama, the Democrat Party, but it's no longer that. It's now both sides just poking the bear on either side. And we got to also understand that the average person is their minds are malleable, they're susceptible, and it's not because I'm saying they're stupid. It's just they're bombarded with all this information. You got social media, you got legacy media, you got radio, you got freaking podcasters, you got influencers, all towing the line to make $1. Kind of going back to what you said earlier, how like you said about Charlie Kirk, not. And I'm not bashing them either, but some of these people eventually they go, hey, I can make more money, earn some dollars for my family, et cetera, and they start to go with what works, right? They just keep going down that road, and we see that. So the responsibility falls on, I think, not just the left or the right, but everybody to recognize this. Like we need to disconnect, step back, and actually see what the hell's going on before we engage and step back in. And the other thing with all of this, where I'm going to go with this, is also how right away everybody wants to not, like you said, not accept responsibility. For example, the person who killed Charlie Kirk, he wasn't a psychotic person by definition necessarily, but he did get radicalized. And the problem we have is we are seeing this in our education system, mostly in higher education. I mean, when you have literal videos of instructors, people with PhDs, we're talking about professors sitting down, literally telling their students, we need to take down America. Communism's bad. We could argue that it could be, but whatever. I'm not communism. I meant capitalism. Sorry.
Capitalism.
I don't know why I said that.
Yeah. I know where you went.
I've been up a while. But capitalism bad, take down America. And yet they're benefiting off the systems that are lining their pockets, right? Some of these professors making, $150,000 to $200,000 a year. Insane.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where they're coming from. So we can't ignore that either. There's correlation now, and people want to ignore it. They want to ignore it. And they want to just keep, like you said, blaming the right, the left, this extreme. But you're right. Trump did not help. I'm going to be honest. I like Trump when he first came into the scene because at first he was literally saying what people were thinking, but he doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled. Like he just kept going and he doesn't know when to pull back. And now it's at the point, I don't know. I think he likes hearing his own voice. And we just had he just addressed the UN today, and it was like he was given a MAGA speech, something that he would give to his own base, telling the world leaders how great he is and how many wars he stopped and everything he's doing.
Yep.
But here we are with France, and we've got the UK, and almost most European nations right now trying to recognize the state of Palestine. And UK went so far as, from what I read earlier, it might be wrong though, that they're even trying to change the address for the Embassy of Israel to say P.O. Box, whatever number, Palestine.
As if they can get in there.
Yeah, exactly. So
they're not allowed in there. Hamas won't let them in there.
It's crazy. I don't know how we're going to write this. I really don't. So again, I think the responsibility is going to fall on people like us, maybe. To be honest, we're going to, people like you telling the truth, people like us doing the research and trying to get the word out. And I'm not always right. I mean,
no, I mean either. And I think the thing that I really always wanted to do is I'm never going to lie, and I'm not going to say something I don't believe, especially because I just feel like there's plenty of that going around.
Right.
And you're absolutely right about the lie thing. I mean, with the violence thing, I think the left has a bigger problem with embracing violence. They're the ones that have said speech is violence and violence is speech. That's so wildly incoherent and anti-American. It's actually anti-American because you either the First Amendment is either the great, I think it's the greatest thing ever. I think it's the reason this country works. I think that you have to have it. And the left has been more anti that traditionally than the right.
They have. Yes.
And especially when it comes to labeling things hate speech and stuff, but then Charlie Kirk gets assassinated and the attorney general is out there saying there's free speech and then there's hate speech. And it's no, you are supposed to be the top lawyer in the country and you should know that that's not true. And Charlie Kirk himself would have argued with you about that. He said, absolutely not. There's no such thing as hate speech in this country. And
so
Supreme Court has ruled over and over again.
So do you think that there is never a case where something is literally classified as hate speech? Not putting on the spot, but just,
I do not think that there is not, and there should not ever be a legal definition of hate speech, because at that point you are saying certain ideas are illegal. And the Supreme Court, look, the most famous Supreme Court First Amendment cases are dealing with Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan, which I think everyone would agree, almost everyone would agree, are bad people and they're evil. And we would all say they're reprehensible, they're terrible, ugly, gross, just everything we hate about the bad side of speech. And yet the Supreme Court said, yeah, but why would we let the government decide which speech is bad or not? Because once you open that door, what it turns into is eventually, again, let's think about the things that if Donald Trump could snap his fingers, which he's tried to do this, by the way, he's still trying to do this right now, and could say certain speech is hateful, what do you think? Right now he's trying to do it. He's saying, if you talk bad about me, he said this to ABC the other day. He said, they were asking him something about, I can't remember the Jimmy Kimmel thing or whatever. And he was like, well, what about you guys? You guys do a lot of hate speech towards me and you say a lot of hateful things about me. Maybe we should take away your broadcast license. So for Donald Trump, what hate speech means is someone said something mean about him. By the way, sometimes it's true. It's and so that if you let the government decide what is hateful and what is not, Donald Trump right now would say, if you say something bad about him, that's hate speech. And if we say the government gets to classify which is hateful and what's not, Donald Trump gets to decide what hate speech is.
Right.
If it's Democrats that worry you, they might say, if you say, I believe there's only two genders, that might be hate speech. And we can throw you in jail for saying that.
There it is. So let's just pick up.
Yeah. Tell me where you want me to.
And look, I was going to add some of this. I was going to say it, everybody, we're having technical difficulties and it's what it is. And we'll splice together. Blake said a lot of great stuff. But where you left off was when you were talking about where the government will be able to decide what is free speech. And, that's where we left off. And you're absolutely right. You're also saying how, the way Trump is acting, you can't, he's basically saying whatever is hate speech is really just whatever's criticizing him, to be honest. you can't criticize someone without them now saying, "Oh, that's hateful. I can't have that." Now, what's interesting is I was going to try to interject with this, but I'm going to say the date today, which is September 23rd, 2025, because today Google just admitted that the Biden administration was having them literally cancel accounts and monitor people's content.
And they were doing it based on misinformation, which
Right.
is just another way to say we get to decide what truth is and what it isn't.
Also, Blake, what's just interesting, since you were just talking about all of this, is California is getting closer. I think, let me look. I was trying to look this up earlier when you were talking. SB 771, I believe. Let me confirm that. And
I haven't heard about that one.
Yep, SB 771. So this is an interesting one. This is going down the road, probably very similar to what's happening in the UK. Now, part of what they're saying in here, just kind of paraphrasing, is that California, if you do anything, now what they're going to do is hold social media platforms responsible, not going after the individual, but basically if anything that's out there that is considered to be hateful speech, and of course, anything that is directed towards what is mostly marginalized communities is what they're saying. And then they go further to define it as, speech against LGBTQ communities, of course, minorities. And then there's other language. You should look that up. I guarantee.
Yeah.
I guarantee it'll be a great episode for you to have. But and on the surface, and this is the problem with the government. You give them a little, they never give it back, right? So on the surface, you're like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. Like people shouldn't be saying those things about these people. But you also can see where they manipulate this and they can control everything that you say. And then also you're being thrown into jail, just like they're doing in the UK right now.
Right. People are being arrested for tweets.
Yeah. Crazy. And I'm afraid we might be going down that road.
I think we are. I think it's weird because, again, I don't want to. Do I need to stop? Is it good?
Oh, no. I'm good. Listen, we're good right now.
Okay.
You don't need to stop. I apologize. I was just listening to it and I was like agreeing. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
But and look, like I'm gonna tell you right now on this show, you can say whatever is on your mind. You're not gonna offend any of my audience.
I don't hold back.
Oh, good.
I think that
go for it.
I think that the problem with all those bills, first of all, I want to say that I think everyone has the best of intentions. I think that's the other thing that's really wrong with politics right now, is that we assume the other side has ill intent. Now, sometimes I think that's the case. I think Donald Trump cares about his self. I think he cares about his own wealth, his reputation. I don't really think he cares about anyone else. And I did not watch the memorial service for Charlie Kirk because I just knew it would make my blood boil. But I know from what I read the next day is like, he made it about himself.
Yes.
And it wasn't about Charlie Kirk. It was a campaign rally for him. And he, even to say the stuff that he said were like, you can tell he went off prompter and he said like, you don't hate your enemies. And he was like, actually, that's where I disagree with Charlie. I hate my opponents. I hate my enemies. And you're like, man, do you realize how, let's get into a different layer of it. Just forget about the politics. Forget about the fact that this guy's like, you're talking to the widow of someone who got assassinated and the videos. It's just awful. It's absolutely terrible to think about what she and her kids are gonna have to deal with for forever, for that being what happened to their dad. And it's so terrible. And he did this at the White House too. After the assassination, he started talking about like the remodel at the White House and stuff. It's just like he does not have he does not care about anyone else. And you can like Donald Trump. You can support his policies. You can say he's a better choice than Kamala Harris. I cannot deal with people that defend him on that. I'm like, well, no, but you don't know. And I'm like, no, I know. A guy got assassinated that he claims to be really close to, and he's talking about how they're redecorating the White House.
Right.
He doesn't really care about Charlie Kirk.
I think there's two things there. I think one, you're right, or could be right. Two, he also may be an individual that just cannot handle loss or handle those anything that is overwhelming to the degree where it does require you to be emotionally invested. I think he wants to avoid it. I don't want to make an excuse for him, but he seems like that kind of person where he just doesn't want to address it. He tries to deflect, basically.
Oh, for sure.
Which is a bad
I don't even think
look,
it's it is, and I just think it's not sincere. I think it's not. Again, you go back to his assassination. If he sticks to the speech that's the first 30 minutes of like, that's one of the better, that's going to be a speech that everyone remembers for forever. Like it's literally going to be like one of the things that can be in the history books because he nearly gets assassinated. He comes out there If he did that and stuck to the prompter, it would have been great. Instead, he went for an hour longer than that and just started turning into it's the greatest hits of the campaign speech. This is why, like, I'm not going all the way down this road, but there are things that Republicans need to be concerned about with his age and cognitive ability that I think he is not the same Trump he was 4 years ago or 8 years ago. Like, he is getting older and his mind is not working the same way it did 8 years ago. And I don't want to be in the party that does the same thing that they did with Joe Biden, where they just pretend it's not happening.
True.
I think that we got to be really honest about that. So I'm not saying let's blame that on everything. He's got dementia. I'm not like the Democrats again started the whole thing. He's dead a couple weekends ago. It's ridiculous. And
well, it is ridiculous and funny, but not far off. I mean, he's not the same person. Who knows that? Look, I want you to know I'm kind of really on the same page with Trump. So what I'm going to say is this: he knows this is his last term, so he hasn't. I'm just going to say he doesn't give a fuck.
Oh no,
he knows it's that's it. He's going to do whatever he can, push the envelope.
Yep.
And I think with him doing this, that the stress and the weight of everything coming down, I don't believe that he already knew he was going to get pushed back. He knew he was going to get blowback, but the fact that not everybody is buying in hook, line, and sinker like they used to, I think is an issue for him. And is definitely a big roadblock. The Charlie Kirk thing made it look like a large part of the population believes in Trump himself, but a lot of them were just there really to memorialize Charlie, and then it got turned in to a damn Trump rally.
Right, because he has to. That is the only way. Everything for him is currency. It's either is it actually making me actual money?
It's all transactional.
Currency, or is it make me look better? That is everything with him. And there is no sacrificial thing with him. Everything is selfish. Everything is, how does this benefit me? And I think it's foolish that any Republican thinks that they're in his good graces. He will throw any one of them under the bus. And he has done this over and over again. That's why when people are like, JD Vance is going to be the next president, I'm like, there's not a chance JD Vance gets out of this 4 years without getting stabbed in the back by Donald Trump. It's just not going to happen because he does it with absolutely everyone. And he's not going to change at 80. Like 80 like
no.
He's only getting more into the thing. And so I'm like, that's just a realistic. I'm not
who does the party look to though? Because a lot of people think JD Vance would be great to carry it on.
Yeah,
but you're right. Yeah. I don't think he comes out of this unscathed. He's going to eventually be he's going to be the scapegoat, I think, on a lot of things eventually. Just like he's been throwing his own administration under the bus and then goes back and says, oh, they're wonderful people.
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons I don't think JD Vance can be it. Mostly, historically, we're always wrong about this 2 or 3 years out. We've talked about Scott Walker. We talked about Rick Perry. We talked about Hillary Clinton multiple times. We've talked about all sorts of people that don't even sniff the nomination. And that's even when we're like 2 years out. So there's that. Vice presidents don't have a great track record. They're 4 of 12 or something that have run for president and won. It's pretty low. It's really not very many, especially if they didn't inherit it via an assassination or something. And even those people tend to lose re-election. And so, it's not like just those facts would be enough to go, I don't think that it's a given that he's the guy. But then you compound it with he's going to have to figure out how to run for, first of all, I don't think Trump's economic policies are going to work. I think that the only saving grace for Trump is that the Supreme Court says he can't implement tariffs the way he wants to. And he can't do it anymore. Right. I think that's the only, because Congress isn't going to stop him. Even when Congress could thwart him for his own good, like the Matt Gaetz nomination for Attorney General was a thing where I'm glad, I can't, my senator is one of them, who's one of the most MAGA people ever. And he was just like, I served with that guy in the House and he is the worst human. I mean, it's basically like, he's the worst human being I've ever, I will not vote yes for him. And you know what? I'm not saying Pam Bondi's a lot better, but she's, I have a lot of problems with Pam Bondi. Morally and character and all sorts of reasons, she's better than Matt Gaetz. Now, I think Donald Trump, all he really wants is a sycophant and a yes man that says, he says, here's what I want to do. I want you to go after my enemies. And they say, yes, sir.
Right.
And so he's going to get that either way with either one of those people. But I think, Republicans helped Donald Trump save him from himself by not giving him Matt Gaetz. But they're not doing that with tariffs. And I don't think tariffs, when used this way, work. I think that you look back to the last election, everyone was mad about inflation happening. Tariffs are going to make the prices of things go higher, and you can't convince people. Fox News, no amount of MAGA brainwashing can convince people that stuff is not more expensive than it was.
Oh, it is.
Like,
it is absolutely more
And
expensive.
I don't think it's actually happened more even so much because we got these like pauses on Liberation Day and stuff, and we're only just now seeing those tariffs really kick in. So you're not going to really, but like around Christmas time, you're going to see supply problems. You will see prices if nothing changes. And I think that will be an albatross around JD Vance's neck. And he's going to have to try to figure out, how do I thread the needle where I say what Donald Trump didn't work while he's still president and can get on television and badmouth me for saying that? Because
right.
presidents in the past, like George W. Bush was not very popular when he left office. And Republicans were like, it actually does not help me to have you come campaign with me. And you know what? George W. Bush is like, I get it. Like, no problem. Like, I'm not upset about it. I'm not hurt. Donald Trump cannot do that. Like, JD Vance will not be able to say, hey, I need you to like dial it back a little bit, because Donald Trump didn't care about the Republican Party. He does not actually care what happens.
No, he wants to be the star.
In fact, I think Donald Trump will not relinquish control of the Republican Party. I think that what will happen is Donald Trump will crown someone. And so if it is JD Vance, that's who he decides to put his weight behind, it will be JD Vance. But it might be Eric Trump. It might be Melania.
But your statement about him crowning someone is probably the truth, but no different than what happened with Obama.
True.
Obama's been the king of the Democrat Party for years. And that's the problem they're having right now. They don't know who's going to replace Obama.
Yeah, I will say the difference there is that Obama, I don't think, wants to be anymore. It's just
I'm agreeing. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, no one has filled that
next
void.
Person.
Yeah, because he wanted to, like, when the Joe Biden thing happened last summer, I think he wanted there to be a primary and stuff, but he was trying to pull those strings behind the scenes so he wasn't the guy saying what needed to happen. And I think that's admirable, but he is. And because the Republicans are in trouble for sure. If Donald Trump died tomorrow, it would be a mess, because I think all these factions that are coalescing around Donald Trump, if they no longer have that threat from Donald Trump, you're going to see the nationalists, you're going to see the racists, you're going to see the true conservatives,
you're going
to see the Reaganites. There's going to be some infighting. The Democrats, I don't know what their answer is right now. I mean,
I think that party's lost at the moment. They have an opportunity to get their shit together, to be quite honest, and really show people what they can be. Because I think the old Democrat Party, when back in the 90s, et cetera, I thought that was a whole different party. To me, back then they represented the people a lot more. Actually, were the part of the people, but they got away from that once they got a taste of power, in my opinion.
Yep.
And then it became the party of the stars and the elite, and they totally forgot where they came from. And but it's cyclical, right? It happens. Yep. The conservative party was that, and then now look at them. Now they're getting used to what they have, and now they're being freaking over the top and elaborate, and now themselves becoming elitists. It's the problem we have is, gosh damn. I just wish our elected officials, and it starts in Congress, in the House, in the Senate, actually just represent the damn people, and just I think party politics has to go out the window. It's never going to happen. I know
I have a different view on that. So what I think the problem is, I think you're right to a degree, in the sense that you're right. But I mean, look, Donald Trump's campaign, that Republican convention was essentially Bill Clinton's convention in 1992 or 96.
Yeah.
They're not that different on, pick any issue. Donald Trump has abandoned the pro-life cause. He's abandoned fiscal responsibility.
Well, he's never claimed to be a Republican anyway.
He's never claimed to be conservative. He says it out loud. So he's already kind of a Clinton Democrat anyway. That's who he really is. Now, I think that there's another, Bill Clinton was a much smarter politician, in the sense that he just he saw where, but for the most part, Bill Clinton saw where the country was going and then said, yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, he leaned into it. And he knew when to shut his mouth.
He picked 70-30 issues and went with the 70%. I think what happened, and I pay a lot of attention to this, because I am how do you solve the problem? I think you've got to figure out what caused the problem to really be able to solve it. So where do we think this stemmed from? And I think I am definitely on board with, I think this starts with, first of all, it starts with, Woodrow Wilson and FDR, with the executive branch trying to control everything and trying to throw, basically, I'm the superior branch. what I say goes. I think that's where it kind of starts, the sort of imperial presidency. And then I think it just keeps ramping up for the next 80 years or 100 years in the case of going back to Woodrow Wilson. Then I think the problem is primaries. I think that when the parties gave up the ability to pick who they're going to run, inevitably where that's going to lead is you're going to get fringier and further to the extremes of your party. And you've opened up single issue groups to control the narrative instead of the party. So the party no longer gets to decide what the party represents. You're always going to have changes. I mean, like the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are going to change over time because issues are going to change, and like there's just all sorts of things that are going to change. And that's normal. But what's not normal is that they've totally flipped on things. And it's more so because they look at the numbers and go, well, so a primary is just like people don't show up in primaries. I don't totally quote me on the math on this, but the 2016 election, which is the last time we actually had open primaries on both sides, you didn't have an incumbent in either way. That was like, if you do the math on how many people picked Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, it's like 4% of the population, because you can't count any of the states after Trump nails it. So it's like, if you're, sometimes they wrap this up on Super Tuesday. And so make half the states' primary votes don't count. It's just like totally worthless. I don't believe in 2016 for a second, if the parties had like overwhelming control over this, they would have let Bernie Sanders, who's not a Democrat, he caucuses with the Democrats, and Donald Trump, who's not really a Republican.
Bernie was a more popular representative.
Right, be their leader, like be the leaders of their party. They would go, no, like we have a litmus test. Like I think it would even be good for the parties to say, for example, we're not going to let anyone run for president that hasn't been a congressman or a senator or governor or something like that. Like just to gatekeep the sort of celebrity nonsense that I think we're heading towards now. And so I actually want to give the parties more power. I think that we stripped that away with campaign finance reform. We basically said, you can't do donations, but the Supreme Court says, and Citizens United says, well, you can't it's restricting speech if you say that people can't donate to like PACs, essentially.
Okay, so I get what you're saying, but let's strip it down even more to the root of the issue. If we're talking about where we are now in modern times, the root of the issue is we got away from common sense and honestly family values. I'm not being the ultra conservative guy.
I get it. I get what you're saying.
We did get away from all that, and we went down this rabbit hole of love who you want to love, be the sex you think you are, gender, whatever. And I'm not here hating on anybody, but those things did lead to where we're at because most people did not agree with it. And I'm not advocating for someone can't live the way they want to live. It's just nobody felt like that message needed to be forced down their throats every single day they woke up. You couldn't have an opinion and you were chastised for it and then you were canceled. Now I'm not that tit for tat guy because that doesn't get us anywhere. Right. But let's go back further. I think the root of the problem is that serving in Congress was never supposed to be a career move.
True.
Period.
True.
And in the 1970s is when you started seeing a drastic increase in salaries. It was never like that. It used to be like a stipend. It was like, okay, here's a little stipend or bonus for you serving, just to, basic necessities, whatever it was. And then the 70s when you started seeing salaries going, I think it was somewhere between 60 to 70,000 a year. And then here we are now, we're at 175 or 177,000 a year. And then you take that, and then also we got to look at, well, if you're only making this much money, why are you coming out the other end a multimillionaire as well?
No, that is a gigantic problem. But
serving 2 years or 1 year also, and you get full medical for life and retirement on top of that?
Mm-hmm. No, there's all sorts of bad incentive structures there. I still think what it goes down to, though, is that the reason I think the left capitulated to the far extreme progressive wing of their party that does not even represent a majority of their party, much less a majority of the country.
You're right.
Is because once PACs can get unlimited money, but parties and candidates can't, who do you have to go to for money? PACs. Yes. What do PACs care about? Single issues. Planned Parenthood only cares about abortion access and nothing else. NRA only cares about gun rights, Second Amendment stuff, and nothing else. And pick it. Go down the list. Most PACs are single issue. There are not a lot of family value PACs. There are not. I mean, there are ones that but they're all like, it's like, we're the free speech PAC. We're the this PAC. We're the, and that's where you have to get the money, and you have to get people fired up enough to go to a runoff in August
Right.
for a primary
So
that no one's interested in voting in. And so the only people you can get to show up in those situations are the crazy people. That is who votes in primary elections. Is for the most part, it's very fringe, like way more politically active. They're junkies like me. They're probably not as informed though, because they're in echo chambers because they're on the far wing of their party. And that's how you get really bad candidates. And then what happens to the rest of us is November comes around and we're like, these two idiots are the choices we have. And it's because we let a system happen over decades that says, okay, 4% of your party is going to get a pick who runs in November. And I just think that's, people are like, well, it's undemocratic to not have primaries. I'm like, no. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that parties have to, they can pick their candidates in smoke-filled rooms. They could do it via a raffle if they want to. I don't really actually care, but I would love the parties to actually have some more ownership of the people they pick. And I think it would work because I think part of the reason the Democrats are in such a bad position right now is because their crowning of Kamala Harris, first of all, their cover-up of the Joe Biden stuff, pissed off a lot of people, not just Republicans. Like my Democratic, I do not have a Democratic friend that defends what happened as far as what Joe Biden did and the people around him and the Democratic Party. And they were lied to. Now I think you have agency to find the same stuff I did. It was not a shock when he went down in flames in that debate, because for years I had been going, this guy's not okay. This isn't me saying, I mean, obviously I disagree with him on stuff, but like, he's not okay. He cannot be the president. And I thought his choice of Kamala Harris was that's what really.
That was a strange one.
I might have voted for him in 2020 based on my dislike of my distrust of Trump at that point, except that when he picked Kamala Harris, I go, he is not taking the fact that he's old very seriously, because he picked the least qualified VP candidate of all his options and he said it out loud because she was a black woman.
Well,
and I just go like, that's not a good reason to pick someone.
That's exactly why.
It's not a good reason to pick someone. And it's not fair to her either, because it gives her no chance to actually prove herself. That goes back to
what we were talking about earlier about how we got here. You know, the Democrat Party then, they're not seeing it that way now, but then it was all about virtue signaling.
Yeah.
And they thought they had a pulse on what the people believed in and wanted. And they were just so far off the mark, they couldn't see it.
I don't think that's what really happened. I think they were pressured by the far extreme wings of their party that says this is what you have to do, right?
I'm
okay, go on.
I'm going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right as well. So, but let's go back to what we're talking about with narratives, rhetoric, psychological conditioning, right? Maybe they didn't believe this. Maybe they were pressured by their donors, as you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
But it was enough messaging every day out there, whether they believed in it or not, they were saying it, people were buying into it. And then at that point, you can't just put the brakes on, right?
No,
it's just not going to, like, I'm not stopping within 10 feet anymore because now I need a distance of 1,000 feet to make this work. And they were just too close to the wall. So now the other thing is, I agree with you on, you kind of touched on it, but maybe what we need to do is, I think we need to get rid of lobbyists, to be honest. I mean, it should be more public, right? I think they should have meetings where they can go in front of all the representatives or whichever representatives in the room, so that it's more public and everyone has a right to hear it at the same time, and they can state their case, what they're there for, etc. And then they can decide what they want to do from there. I don't believe they should be able to donate. And going back to serving in Congress, to me, it should be at the most 2 terms, 2-year term each. 4 years, you're out. There's no way you should be able to get in and be there for 30, 40, 60 years and still have influence. And the only reason they are doing this is because they're getting power and they're getting money. If we could take that away from them, take those incentives away, maybe that can help curb some of the corruption. So
the only thing that's weird about that is that the money thing is absolutely happening. Like, I haven't read the book yet, but I'm totally forgetting the title of it. But a guy wrote a book last year, and it's just all about how they get rich, and it's like it's across the board. It's not good.
Speaking engagements and book deals, we know.
But the power part is interesting, because I don't think Congress is interested in power. They're interested in keeping their seat, but they're not exercising their powers.
But is there no power in keeping that seat? Because I mean, it's all about influence, no?
Yes,
Possibly?
no. I actually don't think it is anymore.
No?
Because if it was about influence at all, more Republicans would push back on Trump and more Democrats would push back on Biden. Like they did stuff that was against their interest in keeping their seats even. Like if you were really interested in having the power, like, well, here's two examples, okay? I think that like future thinking Democrats and Republicans had opportunities to take back the reins of Congress and make themselves seem a little bit more legitimate and throw their weight around. And I would say with Trump, it's obviously his impeachment and removal. Republicans in Congress, actually, they didn't want the uncomfortableness of the death threats they were getting, which is insane to me also, by the way. That's warping the death threats that people's families are getting in Congress is, it's not something that you should have to worry about.
Swatting and all that going on.
Shouldn't be something people have to worry about. But now people are leaving Congress. Most of the people that are leaving Congress are going, I'm a politician. I signed up for this. My family did not, though. And so I can't do, and so that's a really bad part of it. But they had they basically chose to not piss off the crowd and do the easy thing because they just thought it would take care of himself. They just thought, well, no, surely after January 6th, no one's going to put Donald Trump in power again. And so they didn't do the thing that they should have done. And I think Democrats did the same thing with Joe Biden. It's like Dean Phillips is the only Democrat with any credibility to me because there's no way everyone didn't see what was going on and they lied to us and they lied to themselves and they lied to the party and all this stuff. And then on top of that, when his behavior was bad, like for example, the preemptive pardons, especially for his family, I think Democrat, if you were a House Republican, House Democrat at the end of his term, I think it would have been wise to bring up articles of impeachment against him so that you were consistent about it. And when you're running for president in 2028, you get to go to Pete Buttigieg and Kamala Harris and everyone else that wasn't on board with it and go, so you're okay with presidents giving pardons to their family? Because Donald Trump's going to do that in a couple months, right? And you're not going to have a leg to stand on. And so I think there have been opportunities in just the past 4 years where they had such an obvious, like the country would be with them. Like no one felt good about those pardons. No one liked January 6th. People are now making excuses for it and stuff. But like those were 70-30 issues for the most part when they happened. And you could have gotten on the board with something popular. And instead, you chose to capitulate to Joe Biden or to Donald Trump. And so to me, it's like, and Congress right now could take, I think most Republicans in Congress know that the tariffs are a bad idea. And yet they won't put their foot down and say, we're taking away these powers from the president. They know the way he's using the FCC. I think it's a great opportunity to mothball some of these things. I don't think the FCC should exist. I think we've given way too much power to the federal government.
That time is come and gone, yeah.
So I'm with you on, I just don't think those are the biggest problems with Congress. I think the biggest problem with Congress, they're not willing to they don't want to pass laws anymore. They don't want to have to do that work.
So it's as I've said, and I've heard you say it yourself, it's because it's a team sport, right?
Yeah.
Now, what they're doing is, in my mind, keeping power. Look, if you're able to keep your seat, you keep the influence, you keep control of Congress to do what? Keep your party in power. Mm-hmm. As far as you said about Trump and Biden, I completely agree with you. I think there was an opportunity to do something on either side that could have spoke volumes for the people. Mm-hmm. But let's be honest, at that time, who were the choices?
Well, right, but
on either side.
But in both of those situations, they don't even have elections coming up for 2 years. Like they just got elected. Like it's like everything about it is primed for you doing the right thing. You don't have an election coming up. You don't have a hard vote thing. It's just like do the right thing. And they can't even do it in those situations. There's no hope that they're going to do it.
Just saying in general, I'm talking about presidential choices at the time. With Trump, it made sense because he had that momentum already. He was already saying, "Oh, the election was stolen. I'm coming back. I'm going to take this."
Yep.
The thing with Biden, it was like, who else was your choice? Hillary wasn't going to get it. Everybody else was too young and too new to the party yet to really, take it on. So Biden was.
Yeah, but don't you think in 2022, after the midterms, especially when Democrats did better than anyone thought they would in those midterms, don't you think that if Joe Biden, just think about this alternate history, Joe Biden comes out and says, "Look, you elected me to not be Donald Trump because that's what America wanted. They did not want
Right.
Donald Trump. They wanted someone else. They wanted to return to normalcy, and that's why they picked me over all the progressive nonsense in the Democratic primary. Like, he could come out and say all this, right? And so look what I've done so far. Now, at that point, he'd already done the Afghanistan withdrawal, which was a disaster. And I mean,
Yes.
that really, his poll numbers never recovered after that. So
And-
he should have seen that. But again, both these people have really fragile egos. And I think that I think everyone around them lies to them too. It's because they demand that. And so Biden, I think, really believed he was more popular than he really was. Just like Trump thinks he doesn't believe any bad polls, only believes the good stuff. And no one's going to bring him bad news. No one wants to bring Trump bad news.
Yeah.
But if Biden would have come out and said, I'm not Trump. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to run in 2024. And I want there to be a robust debate in the Democratic Party for who takes over the reins. But I said I was going to be a bridge builder, and I'm going to be a bridge to the next generation. And so I'm doing that. I'm saying right now, go for it, Democrats. Figure this out. And I'll support whoever the Democratic Party chooses, through a normal primary process. If at the same time he chose to say, hey, remember how much we were scared of Donald Trump and him abusing the powers that we've given the executive branch? Instead of abusing those powers myself, I want Congress to take some of those powers back. And here's the thing, Joe Biden was set up to be that. He was a senator for forever. Like, he cares about that institution. I believe that Joe Biden cares about the institute of the Senate. And I don't think he I think he was not tricked, but I think the people around him wanted to steal that power. But I mean, I think he very much still, Obama owes a lot of credit to Joe Biden actually knowing how to go to Capitol Hill and make deals happen. And Obama was not good at that. And so I think he actually owes Joe Biden some credit, even though I don't think Joe Biden's a particularly great politician, or, I don't think he ever has been. But if he would have come out and said that, and then said, hey, Congress, I want you to take away the executive branch's ability to do this and this and this, and all the things that Trump abused. And instead of abusing them myself, but everyone wants more power than they have.
Yeah, everything you're saying is right. But you're talking more about political strategy, right? For either side at this point, versus what people recognize them doing. Look, the preemptive pardon thing was at the end of Biden. It didn't even matter at that point. But what stuck out to me with what happened to Biden was how he handled Afghanistan for one. Then the Ukraine-Russia war. You can see where that went, because they chose not to get involved or do anything, put their foot down when they could have. And then we can't even ignore the Hurt tapes, the interviews, where actual business associates and family members admitted to what they were doing, and then that somehow went away and never anything ever happened.
Well, and we got told Robert Hur was, he got dragged through the mud, and he's totally vindicated. And I don't hear a lot of apologies from the press
where's the accountability?
No,
not saying let's go after an old guy, but I mean something.
I think the problem though is that, well, first of all, I think Donald Trump and Joe Biden are a lot more similar than they are different. I think they both have fragile egos. I think that intellectually, I think there's a lot of, and honestly, they both do not give a crap about the Constitution whatsoever. Joe Biden over and over again tried to forgive student debt, even though the Supreme Court kept coming back and be like, you don't have power to do that. Congress does.
Right.
And Donald Trump does the same thing. It's like my way or the highway. And I think there's this weird thing where when people get in power, either party, for most of my life now, especially since 2010, I'd say, is we've got to do everything. We got to cram everything into these next 2 years because we're never going to get another chance again. It's like, even when they're in power, they act like the party that's out of power. And I think that clearly when you have 2012, 2016, 2020, 2024, 4 elections in a row that we keep just going, nope, we're just going back and forth. That says that people are not they're going, let's give these other guys, we're really just firing one person. It's just that we have to hire, we only have one hire option every time this happens when it comes to the president specifically.
That's kind of what my point was earlier, is exactly what you just said. You just said it better than I did.
Yeah, it's just they don't have it. It's like, what choice do we have? And that's where I go, okay, we've got to move backwards from that. And we got to say, first of all, the president's not that important. We got to go back to the president being properly in the president's role. And we've just moved so far away from what Article 2 of the Constitution says. And Congress has abdicated so much of their power to the executive branch. That has to get back in order. That will unfortunately take a president and a speaker of the House that are willing to do it, of the same party. we can't even get a president that does the right thing. Like I said, Joe Biden could have said, I want Congress to take back their power. If they didn't at that point, he can be like, I tried, and Congress wouldn't do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But you're gonna need, and like Congress is all sorts of, I mean, we could spend weeks talking about what's wrong with Congress, because it's not just the stuff you're talking about. It's also just the process of how it works. It's all top-down leadership. There's no committee stuff bubbling up.
That's true.
Like, we're not allowing, like, basically no one has any power. All you do when you go to Congress is fundraise for years. You don't ever get to write a bill. You probably don't get a vote on a bill. I mean, Congress has passed 3 bills, I think, since Donald Trump became president. It's been 8 or 9 months, right?
And the pork, man. I mean, come on. Can we, on some of these, can we have them single subject bills? Can we do that?
Can I give you another unpopular opinion that I was swayed on? I used to be similar. I was like, this is a waste. It's basically pennies on the dollar if you take all the pork. If you actually put more pork into stuff to get people to compromise. In the sense that, like, that's all it is. I get
why. I get why.
And my point is, like, if you could get, like, for example, like a real plan to fix the national debt, like, I'll give you all the pork you want, because it's like pennies on the dollars on what we'll save.
I get it. I get it. But like when we're talking about back when they were trying to tie together, locking down our borders and then giving Ukraine X amount of millions or billions, and then trying those together, you know.
Yeah,
each was important, but they should have been separate issues.
But I think the problem is you'll never get a Congress that votes on single issue stuff.
No, they're not. I know.
It's like they can't be seen to have voted no on the thing. And that's why they don't bring stuff to the floor at all anymore. They don't even want to have to vote no on the thing.
Ah, you're right, huh?
You know, and so like there's so many processes that are wrong with, and there's some really interesting ways. Ben Sass is someone I really like, who was the senator from Nebraska. He's not anymore, but he wrote I think it was Washington Post or New York Times, I can't remember, like a whole article about, like, here's some things I would change about the Senate that don't require, it's like just rule changes. Literally, we don't have to like get an amendment or anything. It's like, I think they should live together. I think we should literally have like congressional dorms of sort where you're actually spending time with these people and stuff.
Not a bad idea.
There were just all these things that were like, and so, you know, it's like, my problem is that everyone excuses the behavior on their side. No one's ever upset about the corruption or the power grabs or the unconstitutionality or even the exclusion of violence. Like, no one ever calls that on their side, because it's not just a team sport. It's become a religion for a lot of people. Like, this has replaced religion as people's religion. Like, people didn't leave religion. They just found another one. And the other one is now, and you think about it, like, look at like the messianic stuff, like I said, with Obama and Trump. And it's creepy. Like, I'm a Christian and it thoroughly grosses me out, because I'm like,
so intertwined,
Jesus does not need Donald Trump to save him. Like, that's not like, you don't really believe in Christianity if you think that, like, if Donald Trump's not elected, that like Christians are going to be murdered in the streets or something like that. Like, you're just not, like, you don't really have a faith in God. You have a faith in Donald Trump, and you think Donald Trump, like, God needs Donald Trump or something. And it's the same, like I said, the same kind of stuff happens on the left. They just replaced with, and again, how you talked about the sort of the way the left talked about the stuff that, like, well, you can't, if you say there's only 2 genders, you are hateful. Again, this is something that 10 years ago, everyone would have agreed on. You'd been like, why are you asking me a question? Is this a trick question? They've been trying to figure out what the angle is. Yeah, there's 2 genders. Like, no one would have said otherwise, right?
Right.
And again, I want people to be able to live. I think what's great about America is that you get to live the life you want to lead. You know, that's the beauty of it, is that, and that's why people come here, and that's why I love that part of America, that like people get to come here, and like I mentioned my wife's grandparents, like our great grandparents moved here when they were pregnant with their grandpa from Italy. You know, almost everyone has some story like that. I mean, unless you're just Native American, I guess. Like, almost everyone came here from somewhere else.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And I like that. It's like people got to go make a different life, and I think that's also I think there will be people that do it in a way that I disagree with. And I'm also what I love about America. It's like, different states can do it a different way. Different cities can do it a different way. Like, if we don't have this uniform thing, you can't do that with 330 million people. And the problem is the left specifically got into a situation where they were pressured by their progressive wing or whatever, but they also turned everything to a moralistic thing. Everything was black and white. It was, you are either on our side or you're evil.
Yeah.
There was no...
that was exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they did that worse than the Republicans did and ever have, in my opinion. And they're still doing it. And they're not learning from their mistake. It's like the trans stuff is such a funny thing to me because, like, why are you still arguing for guys to be in women's sports? Like, we can talk about, like, you could say that we could have all sorts of disagreements about like the details of what should children be given hormones? Should we have surgeries? Is it wrong?
Right.
Like, can adults be transgender? Should they be in women's bathrooms? We can have all these discussions. I don't see how anyone is still defending the sports thing because it's so, like, voters are just like, that's crazy. Caitlyn Jenner says it's crazy, who was a Olympic athlete, and says that's insane if you have people that used to be men who now identify as women competing against women. It's not safe for women. It's anti-woman. It's anti-feminism. It's like all the stuff. You're undoing all the stuff that feminists try to do. But like, they have to go along with it because otherwise you're ostracized.
I agree with you.
Out.
Like, okay. I didn't think we were going to go talking about this, but since
I didn't either, but yeah,
since we're talking about it, my thing is this. I don't believe we should be celebrating sexual preference. We should be celebrating humans or whatever
totally
it is
agree.
that they do in their achievements. The other thing is, I don't care what anybody says. If you want to be trans and you want to have that surgery, when you become an adult and you're out of high school and you believe that's what you are, go for it.
Go for it.
I
don't think it'll make you happy most of the time. Like, I don't think it's the silver bullet that a lot of people on the left are claiming it is for you.
Point being, though, they're an adult at that point.
Yep.
My problem is you can't convince me a kindergartner decides one day they're a different sex.
Nope.
Someone put that there.
Yep.
Period.
Totally agree. It's I just had this conversation with some friends because we know someone that it's like they're 2 or 3 year old, and I just go, oh, that is, or celebrities that have 2 transgender kids. Like, statistically,
yeah,
that is an impossibility, right? Yeah. That idea, that is and what my theory on that, by the way, this is also my theory I kind of mentioned this at the top of the show. Like, most of the crazies, the right is trying to paint this thing as like, and I don't think they're totally wrong, but again, they're not coming at it from the right. I don't think they're saying it the right way.
Their approach right now is saying that, like, look at all these shooters and violent people that were transgender, and they're not wrong about it. And the left does need to own it. The left, I love how, like, New York Times, there's a correlation.
20 paragraphs in before they mention any of this stuff. They're never using pronouns. They're trying to, like, dance around. We're not going to mention anything because they don't want to admit it. I think the right is saying transgenderism causes this thing. I actually think they've got that backwards. I think that most disturbed people or crazy people are influenced by the culture around them. And this is something we've been constantly talking about in the culture for a decade now or so. And on top of that, it's not just that we're constantly talking about it. We celebrate people that transition. Now, if they detransition and change their mind, they're vilified, by the way. Again, You don't really believe in people's choice to do stuff if you vilify the people that detransition and want to talk about it. If you call them bigots and they actually lived the experience. And so I think what it's become is most people, the left has embraced victimhood as a legitimate thing to be proud of. And they've done this with race, and they've done this with all sorts of things. Race, sexuality. Again, sexuality is the least interesting part of anyone's personality, in my opinion. Like, it's just
right?
It's just not interesting to me. I don't sit around and talk about people's, like, sexual preferences.
People don't wake up and that's top of mind. Like,
yeah, it's just not important to me. But it became the most important thing.
Right.
And it also is I've got to outdo the next weirdest thing. So, I mean, it was like gay people just want to get married. And then it's like, well, now we got that. So what do we do next? Transgender people, or like, we should be able to have 50 different genders, or we should, like, and it's just like, to me, but the victimhood thing, it's a great way for white middle class, upper class people to end up being a victim. And so if their kid is trans, it's a way for them to be in a victim class. If they're, and we've seen this with all sorts of things. You've seen people fake this. You've seen people, like, fake being black. We've seen that happen. Multiple fake being a minority.
That was a thing for a while, actually, yeah.
Elizabeth Warren did it by pretending to be Native American, for example. I'm just saying, like, people are, it's hard when you have this guilt, when the left is, like, inundated people with this, like, America is bad, white people are bad, if you're not poor, you're bad. Everything about you is evil. People are going to be desperate to find something that makes them accepted in a group. And I think that is, I think it's a social contagion because, like, I'm not saying it, there are legitimate cases of it. Absolutely. But they're much more rare. Like, you just look at the numbers and you look at the social influence of it and how it's happening more. Like transgenderism, like the true medical thing that used to happen was exclusively with like 2 or 3-year-old boys. And it was very, very tiny percentages of people. It never, I mean, don't quote me on never. All the stuff I've ever seen said it was almost never documented with little girls wanting to become boys. But look at transgender stuff, and most of it's women transitioning to men.
I have something parallel in terms of theory about all this, because when you brought up transgender, and then, you know, obviously people are relating that to school shooters now.
Yeah.
One of those shows I did recently, but my recall, like I got to have the data in front of me, but so I may be wrong on some of these numbers, but I
might know them, but
okay. So 574 school shootings, right? I think it was between 99 and 2024 or 90 something, somewhere in there. 574. A lot of people fail to realize or recognize that most school shootings are actually done by students, not necessarily adults.
Mm-hmm.
Within that same period of time is when there was an increase in medicating your child with SSRIs and other antidepressants. The correlation and rise is there. And you can see, I could send this to you later if you want. What I found, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Also, within that time, as you got closer to 2024, within, I'm not going to say but there's a period of time, years, where you start to see the emergence of the transgender school shooter. So I agree that it's people who are easily influenced, but we also got to look at what also led to them to be easily influenced. Because when you're under medications and you're told that you're depressed and you need something to be proud of and something that represents you, and then you're getting this rhetoric and narrative shoved down your throat, and then you start to believe, well, maybe I'm not who I am. I'm really this person instead.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to make excuses, Blake. I'm just saying we can see a correlation between medications and then the narrative of find your true self whoever you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Within children. And then we see the rise in correlation in shootings at schools, which again, primarily by students. It's not necessarily adults. Some of them have happened by adults.
But for the most part, yeah, overwhelmingly, it's...
And a lot of people ignore that. They ignore that, well, it was a child who actually shot other children.
Yeah. I've got a simpler explanation.
Sure.
I think the data absolutely shows that the media is the problem. The problem is we glorify school shooters.
Yeah.
And that's my thing with the transgenderism. So we've glorified transgenderism. And if you are like, every school shooter is not mentally ill. I don't like that we just jump straight to mental illness and jump straight to mental health. I'm like, no. This person was just evil. Like, now sometimes they are. Like, you can see the prescriptions, you can see the mental health. Like, but the best way I heard it put was like, if you are a crazy person, let's say you're schizophrenic or something like that, and you're in America, you might think you're Jesus because we're still a pretty Christian culture and stuff. And like, you're going to pick up the things that are in your culture. But if you're crazy in India, you're not going to think you're Jesus because that's not in the culture. So, you know, you look at the number, especially these school shooters that like were trans and then weren't trans, especially, you go, that's such a clear social contagion kind of thing. Like, they picked up on that. And then all you have to do is look at and I really don't like saying their names. I don't like giving them any more notoriety than they desire, because this Minnesota one that just happened, so obvious what's going on. He wrote the names of a bunch of other school shooters on the magazines.
Okay.
Malcolm Gladwell had a really great... I was
going to get to that.
Yeah.
Actually.
And so that, like, to me, like, and I've seen some studies that say basically every school shooter gets about $75 million in free press afterwards, especially if they die in the process. Because we're trying to, without having that person to talk to at all or get more information from, we just have to scour their online presence and their social media and their manifestos, and we get to theorize on what happens. And what happens, you get like a situation in South Carolina where it wasn't a school shooting, but was that North Carolina or South Carolina? The guy that went to the black church and killed a bunch of people, right?
Don't recall. I think it was North Carolina.
One of the Carolinas. And he has this like racist website that hates black people.
Right.
I bet no one had ever been to the website before, and now it's on CNN. Well, what do you think happens in that situation? More people see that stuff. More people are influenced by it. People want the notoriety. And over again in these manifestos, these last several ones specifically, they are literally talking about the reason I did this is because I looked up to these other people that did it and the notoriety they got. And the media won't stop talking about it. They know to do it with suicides, but they won't do it with shootings.
I think that's the case for some of these people for sure. Because you're always going to have copycats. You can always have people who are like into this serial killer culture. Now that's some of it, and we could also argue that is also a trait of someone who might be mentally ill. But I don't believe, as you said earlier, that everything is mental illness.
No.
For example, we just talked about it just happened with the Catholic school shooting you just brought up.
Yeah.
That person, if you look through his journal. If you looked at that person's journal and you read everything that was going on, his drawing of himself looking in the mirror, looking like a demon or a devil looking back at him, that was someone who didn't feel that they were accepted. They couldn't find their place in the world. They felt out of place. They had nowhere to go, nowhere to talk to. I think in a lot of cases that's what happens with some of these children or some of these people that may become trans. I don't think they're insane.
No,
I just think that they don't know where they belong. They thought they were going to find their tribe and their people, but then they ended up isolated.
Yep.
They have find out that they can't trust anybody. They don't feel like they could talk to anybody. All of this gets bottled up, and eventually they just feel like the whole world's against them. And then what's their solution? Fuck it, I'm going to kill these people. Or in the case of the Minneapolis shooter, what I thought is he specifically or she, not trying to misgender.
But it's too complicated again because it went back and forth, and so I'm just like he.
Exactly.
And you don't get the benefit of me saying your pronoun you want when you murder kids. By the way, too. That's just the other thing. I don't care.
Understood. But that person targeted children specifically because this is me theorizing. I'm not a psychologist, but didn't want them to make the decision that he was forced to. Like he chose to become transgender. He's probably trying to save them from that. So I know I might be reading into this, but when I read through everything, it really was like this is a person who was out of place. Didn't feel they belonged, had nowhere to turn, and thought they were doing something good by saving the children by doing that. And that is insane.
I mean, but there's so much of his stuff that talked about like how the true heroes were the ones that killed as many as possible, and obviously kids are easy to kill. And he was, I also think that we don't. I think there's also a simple explanation.
I think that was a lot of cope too, though. I think that a lot of that was him or her or whatever trying to justify what they wanted to do.
Yeah, and I also just think there's an explanation of evil a lot of times too. I mean, I think that people, like some people are
there is just that too, yes.
They're just evil. Like there's no way you can, like there is no way to explain away killing kids willingly.
No. And that's not what I'm trying to do.
No, I know you're not. I'm just saying what I don't
I'm trying to get to the root of it basically, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to find out like what is causing this? Like can we got to figure that out.
Right, but when people go, we need better mental health care, I go, maybe, but that's not what prevented this from being stopped.
True.
This person just evil, and they were very influenced by all of the media talking about mass shooters all the time.
Right.
And the reason I know that is because he told us. You know what I mean? He literally like wrote their names on it, and then you see like the Charlie Kirk's assassin does the same thing. He writes on the bullets, writes on the magazines, and you go, that's another version of like. That was influenced by that last guy just a few weeks ago. The Charlie Kirk assassin made this up in a week. Like he literally decided within a week to do this.
We are a culture that normalized violence. I had this discussion with a guest previously.
We are.
Literally. And it's like it's become normalized. And when you're looking at social media, it's like entertainment for people.
It is.
They no longer look at it and feel appalled by it. They're just like, oh, he should have done this to the guy, or maybe he should have pulled the trigger, or they're just cheering on,
cheering it on.
Getting blown up by, a rocket or whatever it is. I'm just trying to find examples, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I will say Democrats did a pretty good job with the Charlie Kirk reaction, like elected Democrats and people in power and stuff. Like most of them said all the right things, including some celebrities that, I mean, like, I don't know if you heard like the Jamie Lee Curtis thing. She was like in tears on a podcast talking about how,
recently?
Yeah, like right in the aftermath of it. And it was, I know she's like, I know she's super liberal. I know she disagrees with Charlie Kirk on everything, but she was just heartbroken by the fact that this guy was murdered for talking, and he's got kids and a wife, and like so dehumanizing when we cheer on violence. And I think so in one way that reaction was like somewhat a relief compared to like Luigi Mangione situation where there are literally people still like selling t-shirts and they're like, again,
Glorifying
like
it.
idolizing this guy.
Yeah.
And you saw it happen with the guy that went into the office. He thought it was the NFL office. He's on the wrong floor. He ends up killing an executive at BlackRock, and people are like, good.
Right.
I'm
right. Right.
Because you don't like the company she works for. You think that this mother deserved to be murdered. And like that inhumane thing is like, I don't know that we can come back from that. And I thought maybe it, I thought it might be able to get dialed back with the Charlie Kirk stuff. And it's been so disheartening to see Republicans take advantage of it. Like I said, I think that whole memorial service it's a sham for everything. I don't think it was honoring to his wife. I don't think it was honoring to him. I think it was about Donald Trump and Republicans. And I've seen all sorts of Facebook stuff where people are like, this is what we do. And this is what black people do is Black Lives Matter. I mean, this is what the left does. That was, and I'm like, man, like you're using it as like a braggadocious way. It's not honoring. Like, I think Charlie Kirk would be appalled by Donald Trump saying, I like to hate my enemies instead. Like I said, like to his widow. Like, I mean,
well, he thought he was making a joke, but he was not.
It's not. And then seeing Republicans defend it as a joke. I laugh. So I love it when I love that he's honest. And I'm like, that, yes, it's honest, but like, it's so wildly inappropriate. And the fact that we don't have the humanity to even see, I hope she's the one hope I have. Like, she could be the person that comes out and be like, how dare you?
Right.
I don't think she will. And I don't think it's her.
I think she feels the pressure. I don't think it's her responsibility. I think the people that are anyone pressuring her to do anything right now is wrong, in my opinion. I would never pressure her to do anything. Well, that's what I think happened. Like, I think the Republican Party, or at least the party of Trump, saw this as an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And they put the pressure on her to turn this into what it was. I don't think this is what she really wanted.
No, and I totally agree. But like, she could be the person that comes out and says, hey, I'm the person that was really affected by this. And what I don't want is call out Republicans that are taking advantage of it. Call out Republicans for saying Charlie Kirk would have been furious at the idea of Trump's FCC chair threatening to take away people's broadcast license because they said something bad about even Charlie or Donald Trump. Like, Charlie did not, like, I disagreed with him on a lot of stuff. I absolutely believe that he believed in free speech in a way that, like, he did not want to silence his critics. Right. I've never seen any evidence that he wanted to do that. And I would love to see her step up and do that. I don't expect her to. I will not be disappointed if she doesn't, because
give her a little time.
She's the victim here. But that's kind of my last, or Spencer Cox, the governor of Utah, said all the right things in the wake of it. And he was a real, like what a leader should be. But guess who he got a call from right after he said those remarks that were like, this is an attack on free speech and this is an attack on all of us? Donald Trump calls him and says, they want to kill us, right? Like, Trump's furious that Spencer, like, he didn't get up there and use it as an opportunity to bash the left. But he called out the stuff, like, he laid out the facts and he said the left isn't, he talked about the embrace of violence and stuff. And unfortunately, I feel like people like him have no future in this party. I hope I'm wrong about that. I want to be optimistic, but it's very hard to look at what will happen in 2028 and see that there's a silver lining somewhere. And I also don't think Democrats are going to have it together either. I think it's like,
no, they're not going to have it together for some time.
And so I just don't have a lot of hope that we will. It's going to take leaders that actually stand up and say, like, this is the right thing to do, even if it costs me power, even if it costs me popularity.
But we're being hopeful because you and I both said that in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I think you and I both agree there. But unfortunately, we know no one's going to want to give up the power, for example.
Right.
I'm with you.
And maybe someone will, and maybe we will demand that at some point. Maybe
I want to do something here, Blake.
Yeah.
Because I think on this issue, you're correct. I think we both are in agreement. We just came at it from different angles, but I'm with you on it. I think you're correct. But what I want to do is I want to circle back a bit because it's kind of come up here and there through our discussion. Okay, when we're talking about school shootings and we're talking about shootings in general, I got to go to the guns. And it kind of came up a little bit in the beginning of our conversation, but we didn't really grab onto it. So I'm going to.
Let's do it.
Because like you said, in California, no matter where you go, you can't just walk into a Walmart and just buy a gun.
Correct.
So the whole bullshit about everybody saying we need common sense gun laws. Do we not already have those?
It's my favorite term.
Oh, good. But do we not already have those?
I'm like, what are you
there's already
talking
a
about?
process.
Yeah.
Thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have.
Well, okay. The simplest version of the gun control debate that I have with almost everyone that brings this up to me is, first of all, we have a lot of common sense laws that we don't enforce right now. So, for example, you lie on a background check, you're a felon, you're not supposed to have a gun. You lie on the background check. We have literally a form with your signature on it that says you're allowed to buy a gun, but you knew you weren't supposed to. Do you know how often we prosecute that? Like 0.2% of the time. I'm going to mess up the numbers here. It was something like there was one year where there were, I want to say there were like 100, it might not have been 1 year, it might have been a series of years. There was like 100,000 forms that they knew that like felons had tried to like buy guns or whatever. They investigated like 1,200 of them and prosecuted like 2 of them. Hunter Biden got railroaded with his thing because they never prosecute people for lying on that gun form. And so that's where I'm like, that's selective prosecution. When you say, oh, we're going to apply this gun law that we don't apply to anyone else. Straw purchases are another one where if I buy a gun because I know I'm allowed to buy a gun and I fill out the background check, but really I'm just buying it and then you're going to give me the money and you're not allowed to have a gun and I'm just passing it along to you, that's a straw purchase. Do you know how often we prosecute that? Almost never. Because do you know who most of the people that do straw purchases are? It's like girlfriends and moms and relatives of gangbangers. And so we don't want to prosecute moms and girlfriends.
Right.
And so, and the only times we've done is like the San Bernardino shooting. That was one where there was a straw purchase and like these were obviously like not even Americans, weren't allowed to have guns. He kind of knew they were going to do it for a terrorist attack. That's the last prosecution I've heard of a straw purchase. We'll also get one for the New York one because it was his boss.
It wasn't a straw purchase, but they did go after the parent. I forgot which school shooting it was.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
And that is a situation where, again,
I can't recall, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but that's a novel law. That's actually a fairly new law. So, red flag laws. We have red flag laws. They've not prevented a single shooting that we know of. Now, I know that's a little hard to disprove, but like Minnesota has red flag laws. It didn't help in this case because it still requires someone to go to law enforcement. Beyond that, the church shooting that happened in Texas was a Navy, a guy that got kicked out of the Navy for beating his wife and was supposed to not be on the registry, and the Navy just somehow messed up the paperwork and never put him in the NICS system. So he wouldn't have passed a background check if the Navy did their job right. So again, government ineptitude.
But so there's gun laws in place. Yeah. You can't just walk in and purchase.
Correct.
You just said that. You just said that, and you're right.
True.
But they don't investigate the times where people circumvent willingly. Yep. But what also is not being spoken of, and I actually went over this with a ex-DEA agent that I had here, and we talked. No one's talking about the amount of black market guns that are sold but purchased legally, kind of, from actual gun shops by cartels, doing what you said earlier. Moms, girlfriends, brothers, whoever, purchasing these weapons, going back to the cartels, and then flooding the streets in the black market. So even though we have these laws that control people from illegally buying them from legal gun dealers, we're not stopping the cartels from circumventing the system by having the brother, cousin, aunt, uncle that does not have a record from being influenced and forced to buy these weapons and pumping them back into the streets.
Well, and most of them are stolen too. I mean, that's the other thing. It's like 90% of gun use and crimes are stolen. So it's like, well, there's a problem there. I think the solution that is so obvious, and I don't understand why it's not happening, is like you just take violent crime very, very seriously. If someone gets arrested with a gun that's not supposed to have a gun, I am not normally for mandatory minimums, but I think that's one where I am. I'm like, if we've said you're not allowed to have a gun and you have one, like specifically you're a felon that's not supposed to have a gun, and you have one, you're going to jail, period. Like
5-7 years.
Like no, and you can't plea it down, you can't do anything. It's like 3 years, 5, whatever it is. We pick you will definitely go to jail if you get caught. If you use it in a violent crime, if you're robbing a liquor store, if you threaten your wife with it, if you whatever, like we don't take domestic abuse seriously, and most violence escalates. Most people don't just snap and murder someone. They threaten someone and then they actually physically hurt someone. And we just keep giving it a pass. And it doesn't help that on the political side, we give it a pass when it's on our side, or the left doesn't want to prosecute. Like the truth is, black people, talk about DC, because Trump did the whole National Guard stuff. We look at the crime in DC. It's all in 2 wards. They know that's about 500 people they know the names of that cause most of the crimes in the city. People get arrested over and over and over and over again. You've got a DA that's not willing to prosecute because they're worried it looks like I don't care about black people.
Right.
Well, guess who the victims are? They're also black people. So 96% of the victims of violent gun violence specifically in DC, 96% of them are black. You are not protecting or caring about black people if you don't arrest the people that are shooting black people. They happen to also be black. But like every black resident of DC that's not a criminal would love for the people that are murdering their children to be in jail. And that's the problem is we keep playing this game of like, well, we got to defund the police, or the left is saying well, we can't have disparate outcomes. Well, look, I don't know all the sociological reasons that some young black men choose crime more than other races, but they're also like disproportionately the victims of those crimes. Like if you are 15 to 30 years old and you're a black male in the United States, or sorry, in DC specifically, you have the same chance of dying that our soldiers did in Iraq and Afghanistan. That is the percentages that we're playing with. You're literally asking these people to grow up in war zones. And the only we don't have some enemy that we're trying to fight. You could lock those people up the second you catch them with a gun. We do not take violence. You said we're a violent country. We're going to be more violent than every country. We even were 100 years ago, 200 years ago. But we don't take violent crime seriously until it escalates to murder. And even then we excuse it sometimes. And so to me, all you would have to do is like make criminals understand that if they do something illegal and they have a gun illegally, they are definitely going to jail. Increase the chance of it happening. You don't have to increase the sentences. The sentences could even be lower. But if you increase the like chance, like they know if they get caught, they're going to jail and they're not going to be this revolving door, I think you will see a reduction in gun violence. And I also think you have to do that with school shooters too. I think you have to increase the chances that they're going to get shot before they get a chance to kill a bunch of people. And going back to the manifesto of the Minnesota shooter, he was calling the guy in Indianapolis basically a punk and several other ones that went into a place that got shot by a concealed carry holder. And he's basically saying like, they're losers. Well, right. I mean, that's a great way to influence people to not do it. You might get shot by someone.
So there's a lot there.
Oversimplified, obviously.
No,
but
that's not oversimplification, because if people are not getting punished appropriately for the misdeeds, then of course there's never going to be a correction of the action. Right. Correct? Mm-hmm. Now, as far as gun violence goes, now we're talking about gun violence. It's disproportionate in terms of how it's being presented to everybody, because they just look at the problem being the gun.
Right.
I could put the gun on my desk, never look at it, and it's not going to do anything.
It will never hurt you.
I'm just saying. And I know people think that's an asshole way of saying it, but it's true. The thing that you were talking about earlier, like the people in DC, it's kind of the point that a cop doesn't want to do anything, or a DA or whatever, because they don't want to be accused of being racist, correct?
And by the way, it's not even the DA in DC, it's the U.S. Attorney's Office. So like
DC
the president,
yes.
Yeah, the president has a direct line to tell that person what to do and what to not do.
But even just using a DA as an example in other cities, like let's talk about Chicago, Oakland, wherever.
Yep. Uh-huh.
But you're right. Yeah, in DC, it's actually the president. It's like right there, like they have control. So the problem though is with people like you were talking about the black community, but it could be anything. It could be the Hispanic community, it could be the Chinese, it could be the Hmong community, which has a huge gang problem as well.
Yep, for sure.
You get born into this area and it's hard to get out. Like they're influenced by opportunity that they don't have. They see fast money, which looks like fast money anyway. And then what you were saying earlier about the media, it's like rap music, videos, everything else glorifying this behavior. You've got people like basketball players glorifying this, showing them what, their giant chains and whatever it is they have that they're just glorifying.
Like Ja Morant is a great example of like, why you're not inner city, you didn't grow up poor, you're like, and yet you're like buying into that gun gangster culture when you're like, you're a millionaire.
I mean, look how many NFL players ended up getting arrested or charged for having, carrying a gun or even murdering people in a club. And it's crazy that they're buying into. So it's something that we got to change. It's a cultural change that has to happen. I think
you've got to look at every single one of those kind of crimes differently because suicides are
Agreed.
2/3 of gun deaths.
I know
and
that.
and the same thing that works for solving gang violence isn't going to solve suicides, isn't
But-
going to solve mass shootings, isn't going to solve domestic violence.
Yeah,
Like you
you're
have to
correct.
look at all of them as individual. Like we just look at the big number and go, it's guns. Because
No,
that's
no,
the only
and-
common denominator.
And what you said is correct, because like a lot of people don't even realize that gun deaths, the leading cause is actually suicides. People don't even realize that.
Yeah, and that's what I don't like about a lot of the statistics on guns is that they're wildly misinforming people. It's not
Oh,
that
big
they're
time.
lies. It's that they're like, if you don't mention that 2/3 of gun deaths are suicides, you're not really wanting to tackle the problem. You just don't like guns. Because I just think you tackle those two totally different ways. I think something like a 3-day waiting period might cause suicides to go down. It might not. I don't know. And I also don't think that's an infringement on anyone's Second Amendment rights, as long as you had a carve out for if someone was truly scared of like in a domestic violence situation or something like that, you could
Right.
have exceptions to that. Like I would think of that
So-
like sort of like a red flag thing. But it's just like you got different solutions for different problems.
Right. But
And
how
most
do we,
people aren't having honest conversations about
let's
what the real
let's go
problem
back
is.
to the gang violence thing with guns, though.
Yeah.
In your opinion, there's no right or wrong because none of us are qualified. I don't think. Maybe you are. I don't know. I'm not qualified. But
I mean, yeah, I
How-
don't know if I am either. We'll see.
what is the solution of changing the culture? To where that is no longer glorified. Like obviously,
Yeah.
it's helping to create a pathway to opportunities to where they don't feel they have to
Yes.
turn to that.
Yep.
But how?
Well,
Like,
I think
how do we break that cycle?
I think the punishment part is an important part of it because you
Okay.
have to, and like I said, there are varying degrees of that. If you catch a 15-year-old with a gun, I'm not saying we throw him in jail, even necessarily. But there needs to be an intervention of some sort there, and that the other biggest problem is, I mean, some of that Malcolm Gladwell article I mentioned was, I think it was in the New Yorker. It's from a long time ago, but it was talking about the contagion of school shootings. And what they found is like when they could discover that someone was like being, like I said, we see red flags all the time where we go like, I mean, I've known people where I'm like, I will not be surprised if I find out at some point, like if I turn on the news and they've murdered someone. Like like they've given me the creeps or whatever it might be. Or in those situations, they're drawing stuff or whatever. Like that's the point to intervene and not to like scare them, just to be like, hey, like I'm seeing this behavior. I'm seeing it's, are you upset about something? Like what, like that is when you have to intervene. And unfortunately, there's not a sexy law that can do that.
Right.
That is like case by case. It does take like people talking about it. It takes people taking the escalation to violence seriously. A lot of the like more disturbed school shooters did stuff like shot animals before or shot pellet guns at people or
Yeah, there's always signs.
did some sort of violent activity before it rose to the level of like someone actually getting hurt. Some of the shooters have done things like discharged a weapon or like brandished a weapon. Like those are things where no, we got to take that more seriously. Like I'm a gun owner, I carry a gun, but like I do not like gun owners being irresponsible because
Blake, where's the intervention though? Is it just law enforcement or
No,
is it coming back down to the parents?
I think parents are a much bigger part of the conversation than we ever talk about. But again, the left doesn't like to believe that you need two parents. I even just read an article yesterday trying to sort of debunk that like 2-parent households are better because they were like, well, but if you look at first of all, they lied about some of the statistics. They were claiming half of Black children are in 2-parent households. It's 42%. I'm not saying you're close, but I mean, it's a little different. And they're like, well, even when you compare for that, they have worse outcomes than white kids in 2-parent households. And I go, okay, that could be true, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't encourage 2-parent households. Like it's like all the data shows that kids are much better off in 2-parent households. And that is not to say that if you are divorced, you are a bad person or, especially you're in an abusive relationship or they're abusing, like there are all sorts of reasons, but it's just that you are giving your kid a disadvantage. Like that's just part of it. Now, kids are resilient and I know so many people that had terrible childhoods and have turned out to be wonderful people. They're not murdering, they're not violent, they're not any of those things. But it's because other people stepped up. The government can't do that. The government cannot love your kid.
The government
cannot love you.
Right.
The government cannot even really, I don't think the government can really protect you from bad parenting until it like rises to the level of abuse. Like until it's something that like we can arrest a parent for or take kids away from the parents. It's drug addiction, it's abuse, it's like all these kind of things. Like the state, I think, should step in those situations. But you cannot make people be good parents with some government program. Now you can try to encourage. I think we should encourage. I mean, for lots of reasons that we could get into, I think we need a higher birth rate because we're just not replacing ourselves even.
Well,
I mean, there's all sorts of economic and all sorts of reasons for that too.
But that's true. That's a true statement.
Like we need more kids that have two parents that love them and they support them. And I just see like, it's not anecdotal evidence. Like the evidence shows like two-parent households, those kids fare better in every way, in academics, in career, in money made over their lifetime, in all sorts of ways. They do better across races. Now, like I said, there's still disparity there, but like then you go to the next level and you say, okay, well, like that's one level. What's the next level? Well, maybe there is. I mean, honestly, I think the biggest problem with a lot of it is I think there's a lot of like soft racism of like these sort of low expectations of Black kids.
Right.
It's like
that's a thing. You're right.
California's graduating kids that can't read. That's not that kid's fault.
No, that's not helping the kid either.
The state failed him by saying, well, we've got to pass him along. We got to keep him moving along or else we look bad. And like, if we don't cheat these test scores to get him graduated, we get less funding or whatever. And like the motivations are all so perverse. But like the state failed that kid. If you graduate from high school in California, who has a higher GDP than basically all but like 4 countries in the world, I think. Like if it was his own country,
right?
In that state,
4th in the world or something like that.
The school is graduating people that can't read, and they're getting to college, and college professors, they're even getting to college. That's what's crazy. They're like going to college, and then like someone realizes they can't read.
I've seen it. I can't. I'm not saying too much, but I'll just say I've seen it. I know.
And so what bothers me about the race stuff specifically so much is that the Democratic Party, I think, has just taken advantage of having the Black vote and just been like, well, we just have that in the bag. And like, but what have they done for Black people? Like they said Black Lives Matter and they put Black things on their Instagram profiles and they say a lot of stuff, but I don't see a lot of actions making Black people's lives better by the Democratic Party. I really don't. I mean, and I don't think Republicans have, I think Republicans are too stupid, or, Donald Trump is a good example of someone who just thought he had to be racist to be a Republican. That's just what he assumed, which is also crazy. I don't think most Republicans are racist. I think there are more now than there were 8 years ago. I think it's more towards Jews than Black people, but I think there's all this animosity. And I just think that, Donald Trump sort of he increased his vote in every demographic other than white college educated women. That's the only demographic that he lost vote on from 2020 to 2024. Yeah. And so, he did expand that a little bit. I don't think I think Republicans are kind of like celebrating a little early that they like have that in the bag for forever. I think Democrats had some reason to believe that sort of demographic was destiny in some of the way, but I think they ended up being wrong, but they didn't. I don't think they were crazy to think that like they had these people in the bag forever.
Because at some point you could only lead them around. Like you can only lead them by a carrot for so long until you actually let them have the damn carrot. You got to do something for them.
And the other thing I don't like is that I think Democrats, they talk down to Black people. I'm specifically picking that minority group just because they are so disproportionately affected by crime and by poverty and by violence and like it's a fact. They just are. But I think of them as the victims of that stuff. When because there are more Black victims than there are perpetrators of those crimes. Like if some gangbanger shoots another kid, like even if that person goes to jail, that kind of affects them. But like the victim, it's like their family and their neighborhood, and maybe the store closes because it's too dangerous to be in. And now these people have to travel further and their stuff gets more expensive because people are breaking into it. There's all these factors that happen that I don't see that the Democratic Party is like offered a lot of real good solutions for. Even down to like with abortion stuff, Planned Parenthood puts Planned Parenthood places in poor Black neighborhoods more than they put them in other places. And you just go, why? Like are you helping Black people or are you helping exterminate Black people? Because that's how I look at it. I'm like, there's been more Black babies aborted than born. And so I go, your population would increase if that didn't happen. I think most of them are fooled into believing they don't have another choice other than that because
they might not.
And I just think that like all of those things combined show me a Democratic Party that has taken advantage of having black people, including trying to tell black people what they, even when they disagree with them, they tell them they're wrong. So voter ID is a great example. Democrats say it's racist, right? It's like 80% of black people say, yeah, we're for voter ID. We think it's a good idea.
How
Why
is
would
it
you not
racist?
check? Again, you're expecting black people to not be what? Smart enough to go get an ID? Like, that's racist.
That's
Like,
dumb as
that's
hell.
prejudice.
Yeah, look, a lot of what you said goes back to what we were kind of saying earlier about how do we change the culture, right? Let's say
Yeah.
in the black community. We're just talking, by the way, everybody, we're just talking about it because it came up with the gun violence.
Yeah, it just can't. Yeah. And like I said, they are
not
victims of it.
zeroing in on everybody.
And they're victims
But
of
listen,
it.
what you said is correct about the Democrat Party when it came to the black demographic. They say that they're for them. They're for the black demographic, but they haven't offered solutions. Like if they're offering solutions, they would have created opportunity for them so they wouldn't have to be reliant in this on this vicious circle of violence and where they think that that's the only option for them to get ahead and earn whatever money they think they can get through violence, right? And crime. That's the big thing I see is they're not creating real opportunity, and they also have gotten away to what we were discussing earlier, the family unit, letting parents have control and feeling like they have the support to be able to nurture their children, to raise them correctly. That's not there. Now, those are the two things that the Democrat Party failed to do with the black community.
And look at what happened when Barack Obama, as president of the United States, as the first black president of the United States, calls out black fatherlessness as being a problem. Like there should be no one more appropriate for that. And what does Jesse Jackson do? He goes on TV and on a hot mic says he wants to cut his balls off. He can't believe he said that. You don't really care.
No.
Like again, like it just shows that it's a grift. Like even Jesse Jackson's, it's a race hustle. Yeah. And because otherwise you would go, like to me, I had this hope that like it would be great to have like a black leader. And like there have been other ones that have done this kind of thing. And they normally get, kind of crucified for it. So why would they go out on a limb and say that when it's, and again, it's interesting to, like in that situation, it was Jesse Jackson, who's also black. So I'll at least give him that. Most of the time it's white people telling black people how to think, and that if they don't think the same way they do, they're the problem. Whether that's voter ID laws or pick anything, pick a police, defund the police is another one. It's like they got all on this, like Black Lives Matter, defund the police. And most black people in those communities were not saying defund the police. They were going, we would like more police. Like we live in this every day. You get a like from your ivory tower, tell us how to live. Like we're the ones like whose kids are getting murdered. We're the ones who deal with this crime. We're the deal with and you're telling us the solution is we should just get rid of all police. Like you're not even asking us what we want from this. And like that's what infuriates me. And I just don't.
Let's circle this back. So basically, after everything's said and done, we don't really have a gun problem. We have a cultural problem. We have a problem in culture and community that needs to be addressed.
Yeah,
really.
I mean, I think we do have a violence problem that gets escalated because guns are such an easy way to commit violence.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like,
no, it does, but
it contributes to.
Here's my slight pushback. So all things equal and considered, UK, you're not supposed to have a gun. If you look at the murder rates, if you take suicides away, etc., and you look at the actual murder rates of the country per capita, we're not that far apart.
No, but when you pull in all violent crime, it is, and it always has been for the history of our entire nation. Like we are a more rebellious, a more.
No, I understand, but if you look at the murder rates, and I don't know what they are now. I forgot when I did this, but when you look at it, they were not that far apart. If you're looking at population per capita, UK, there was a huge amount of stabbing deaths.
Yeah,
and then where there wasn't stabbings. In other countries, it was by any other means. And my point being, Blake, is crazy will find a way to be crazy. Period. They're gonna if they're intent on killing and they're intent on causing havoc and committing crimes, they will do it. They will find a way to do it.
Right. Look at people driving like vehicles into crowds of people and stuff now.
But guns make a statement because they're pretty finite. I mean, it's.
Well, there's a there is I mean, again, another thing with going back to the contagion thing is it's a media problem in the sense that like when it's an AR,
Right.
it
Agreed.
seems so much scarier. Like,
Agreed.
and most of the people I know that are ignorant on guns, and not because they're stupid, just because like they don't own them, they don't want to, and that's fine. Like it's totally your right to do whatever you want to. When I actually explain what the differences are between like an AR and the rifle, well, maybe not the right, it was bolt action, my point is like, and then you look at the actual stats. It's like, do you know how many people are murdered by all rifles in the country? It's less than 2% of all the murders in the country, as opposed to handguns and shotguns. And honestly, more people are murdered by fists than they are by rifles in the United States every year. So, but like most people don't, because it's just not like, that's not sexy. No one is scared. Like the local news is always going to run someone got shot over someone got beat up, even if they got murdered with those hands. If someone chokes someone to death, which happened, like by the way, also happens more often than murders by long guns.
How much more scary is that though? When you think about the commitment of actually killing someone with your bare hands. I mean,
right, and that's the other problem is that like, yeah. So that's where like guns do, like the one thing I will give the caveat is that guns do make it a lot easier to have well, I'm a huge Batman fan, as you can probably guess by the Batman stuff behind me, the Dark Knight quote of like, him liking to stab people because it's like so personal.
Right.
And like there's something like creepy to that because it's true. Like it would take, like, I don't know if I could shoot someone if my life was in danger. I think it would still be a lot harder to stab someone for me. I think it would be, that feels a lot more real than firing a gun at someone.
Well, and so you're absolutely more connected to it, right? It's you physically, having to plunge that instrument versus you're from afar and you're pulling a trigger and then you got the projectile doing it for you.
Yeah, and so like to that degree, I would say, yeah, it makes stuff a little bit easier. But at the same time, and there's 400 million of them in the United States too.
That's crazy,
right? But the like again, that doesn't. Like we have got lots of things that can kill us,
I know.
And most of them do more than those guns do. And really, and the other problem is, like I said, we're looking at, most people have an outsized idea of how often school shootings happen. Like, I don't think we should do school shooter drills in schools because kids are more likely, literally, statistically, more likely to die walking to school than they are to ever be in a school shooting, not die in a school shooting, like be at a school where a school shooting happens. Like, it's just like, it doesn't really happen. And even the number you rattled off earlier, that includes like the school resource officer accidentally discharging his weapon on the school grounds.
Yeah, and
they count that as a school shooting. It's really only like 100 something. I don't have the exact number. I'm going to try to pull it up, but it's only like 100 and something since 1980.
Yeah,
when you actually look at mass casualty events.
The thing with the school shootings too is like they already look schools already look like prisons right now.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. They're all fenced off. They're guarded. High schools have police officers. I mean,
my daughter has to go through a metal detector in middle school at a small school. It's not.
It's crazy. And still to think what we were talking about earlier, that pretty much the majority, if not 90, I don't know the exact percentage, but it is committed by other students.
Mm-hmm. So who you're telling what the plan is if a school shooter comes into the building.
Isn't that crazy?
I also go, you're telegraphing what to, like, it's a bad plan. You know what I mean? And I also think
constantly traumatizing kids because they, after they do a drill, they're going home thinking, "Hey, mom, am I going to die? Like, what are they talking about?"
And so I think of it like seatbelts. I tell my kids to put their seatbelts in the car, not because I don't tell them, "Hey, we might get in a fiery car crash and you'll die if you don't have your seatbelt on." I don't say that every time I get in the car.
Yeah,
it's like if we get in a wreck, it's the safest possible situation is for you to be in a seatbelt or car seat or whatever the situation is. I don't want you to be scared of getting in a car every time you get in a car. And the way we talk about school shootings, you've got people that literally have this anxiety that it's going to happen to them. And it's just not statistically very likely to. And I'm not doing that to downplay the tragedy of it happening, but it does have an outsized level of fear, which also includes that notoriety influences more people to do it.
There's that, and it normalizes it. It normalizes the idea of it.
Right. It basically says this happens all the time. There's nothing you can do about it.
Right.
And I think that is such a bad mentality. And I think the right has done a little bit too much of, I think there are really obvious solutions to even solving school shooting stuff. I think it's like the best one I've read, a blog called Hand Wavering Freakoutery, which you can imagine is right up my alley as far as all he talks about is like the things people freak out about, but
Right.
are really not worth freaking out about. And specifically, he talks about how, look, why not? Why would you not like? I did the math on this. It would cost something like less than $1 billion, I think, or something a year. It's not very much money when you're looking at the federal budget. You just put like an ex-Marine at every high school in America, at like in the full things with the AR, like at the door. Like, do you think anyone's going to go to that school?
No,
because they know they're going to get sniped immediately by the guy that's better trained than them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, doesn't cost that much money. And then, but every time I bring that up to someone that's like more just totally anti-gun, they're like, we shouldn't have to. And then they get into a moral thing. I'm like, okay, like, great. Be on your soapbox and talk about that. I think another pretty good solution would be if I had control, if I was a school district, I would have a news conference and I would have press releases and all this stuff about we're training teachers. They're going to carry guns. You're not going to know who they are, but like we're going to have a sign outside that doesn't say it's a gun-free zone. We're going to say we have armed teachers here. You're not allowed to bring a gun in, but there are armed teachers here. I don't think you'd even have to train one teacher. I think if you literally had the press conference and pretended to do it, your school would no longer be on the list of places people would go shoot up. Like there are, and like it sounds like a really silly solution, but like I think it's a real solution. You just like look at the manifestos and again, why could we not hire National Guard or ex-military people, people we trust to just like go do it? And I think that you could. I think you would see I think if like, and perfect. First of all, it's a perfect thing for Donald Trump to do. It's right up his alley. Loves using the military for things that we kind of have qualms about. Like I said, make it ex people, like make it former Marines. They're not like, they're really just the resource officer. They're just not the fat guy that can't be a real cop. They're like, and pay them well. Pay them 80. I think I did the math on if you paid them $80,000 a year, which is pretty good amount of money for sitting at a school, right? Basically being a security officer. Make it 100,000.
You think we should have them in like full fatigues and everything too?
Yep. I'm saying like the full
just
on.
Give the whole, give that whole look.
The uniform,
aura,
the AR, all the vest stuff, chapstick over here, like all of it. Like make it look like I went to my sister-in-law. I just graduated from the Naval Academy and we went to her graduation where JD Vance was speaking. Can you imagine what the security was like to get in? First of all, it was wildly disorganized because they probably fired everyone that did it the year before. So it took us 3 hours to get in the stadium. And anyway, but like you knew, like they were, and this is a place they guard all the time because it's it's the stadium that a president or vice president speaks at every year at this graduation. They should know how to do this. But yeah, everyone there is like in full on, like no one's messing around. You don't have any like fat cops there, like with their little revolver, and like everyone was like full gear. And I'm just saying there's a seriousness that people take. And like what like I said, I don't like is the pushback from people that are really anti-gun is that they're just like, we shouldn't have to do that. We shouldn't have to fortify our schools. I'm like, I agree. I wish we were in a world where we didn't have to do this. But wouldn't you rather do the thing that prevents it from happening than have the moral high ground of kids not having to see a gun on campus? First of all, I don't think like everyone already has the like resource officers. They're just poorly trained. They're not.
But we still have to address the issue of the majority of school shooters being carried out by other students.
Yeah. Okay. At max, there have been 191 active school shooter incidents at K-12 since 1980. That's like active shooter. Like it's indiscriminate. It's just about killing as many people as possible.
Deliberate mass shootings versus
in those there and keep in mind I wrote this is probably a year old, so there might be a couple more than that of those since 1980. 148 student fatalities and 450 wounded. That is not, when people call it an epidemic, like I said, more kids have died walking to school in that amount of time, more kids have died in the car rides on the way to school, more kids have died, like there are also more kids have probably died drowning, I imagine. I mean, like way more, and like swimming pools are the most dangerous thing that we have around everywhere. And like more people die of accidental drowning than almost anything. It's like small kids and older adults generally. And again, we go, how could we make that better? Well, most state laws now have a thing. It's like a building. You got to put a fence around it where a kid can't get into it. Like there's some really just smart things that you can go, that's an easy thing to prevent a kid from falling in a pool. And I look at school shootings the same way where I go, and that's why I say the media is to blame. Everyone would overestimate that number. If I polled 100 people on the street, everyone would think there'd been more than 191 shootings, and everyone would think that more than 148 kids had died and more than 450 had been wounded. And I'm not saying all of those aren't tragedies. None of those should have ever happened. But there are like 40 other problems that are more important. But I think this is just such a, like I said, put armed guards outside, you're done. And make them be people that are already really well trained militarily. And like I said, I think it's something that's right up Donald Trump's alley. I think it would be actually a great thing to try. Like, just get the states to go in. Like, here's what I think would happen. The realistic version of this is Donald Trump gets all the red state Republicans to have the National Guard do that. You just post one guy out of every high school. What I think you would see is a real-time experiment where shootings would go down in those red states and they'd stay the same or whatever in the blue states.
More than likely. Yeah.
And I would bet money that that's the result of it, is that you do not see a school shooting at a place that has an armed, like, military guy outside.
So
I don't know if that's too inelegant, but
no.
Like,
We covered a lot of ground here. I don't know if we have time. It's up to you. I was going to see if we can go overseas for a bit and get your opinion on
let's do it. Yeah, I'm in.
Okay, so let's go overseas now.
Yeah.
Because domestically we're a mess. We got ideas, but hopefully some of these get implemented. That'd be great.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what's going on with a lot of the European countries that are recognizing the state of Palestine. I don't know how you feel about that situation in general.
Oh, I've got lots of opinions. Yeah.
Okay, but it is very interesting.
Yeah.
How everyone is completely anti-Israel, anti-Semite as well, or anti-Semitic. We've seen an increase of that in the United States.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not. I'll just hear you out. We'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts there?
When it comes to the, first of all, I think geopolitical stuff and wars are bad, right? Like, there's no version of a war that's good. There are certainly like righteous wars, but like the things that happened in World War II for us and our allies to save the world, essentially, like, are not like, there's a lot of death. You've got like tens of millions of, 60 to 80 million people or something died in World War II.
Nothing good.
Nothing good. And yet, like, so now everything is amplified by like the internet. Like, we are much more aware of what's going on because we are getting like minute by minute or hour by hour or day by day sort of updates. So I think war feels heavier. Like, I think there's a lot of people that have this perception that this is this like, well, no, we saw it with the Iraq and Afghanistan wars too. People were saying like, it's the new Vietnam.
I think that's where it started, was back then.
And you're like, it's like a tiny percentage of the people that were wounded or killed in Vietnam. It's like 3,000 versus 80,000. I mean, it's just like a wild difference in the numbers. And you just go like, it's not the same thing. But I think
it was the first time it was up front and personal. Like,
yes,
every time we turned the news on, it was just constant 24/7.
On TV every night. And the first time we had that really was the Gulf War, which was just like super quick in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Because really Vietnam was like newsreel. I mean, it was like film.
And it was started with the Gulf War. The wars in Iraq is what started all of this.
It became, you can literally broadcast it in real time. There were correspondents for cable news live on the air as things are blowing up behind them. And that was just not a thing we had before.
No.
Fast forward to now. What you end up with, I think, is so basically we're feeling the weight of it, and we oversimplify everything because, again, now everything is, are you pro this? Are you anti this? Everything's black and white. And war is just not black and white. It just isn't. It can't be. What bothers me about the pro-Palestine stuff is most of it is rooted in anti-Semitism. And I don't even think most people realize they're being anti-Semitic when they say some of the things. From the river to the sea is racist. You're saying that you want to, like Hamas's explicit charter was, we want to kill Jews everywhere they are.
Yes.
In the world. Okay. So that's the organization we're dealing with. And the people in Gaza elected these people in 2006. And then they immediately took over everything, murdered any opposition, never had elections again. But they were elected. These people were elected by the people in Gaza. And in Gaza and the West Bank, children are taught that the best thing you can do is murder a Jew. And they teach them how to slit Jews' throats. And there's an indoctrination that's happening that we will not change for generations. Even if Donald Trump could snap his fingers and end the conflict, there will not be two-state solution tomorrow. There will not be, because there are a significant portion of people who are Palestinian in either Gaza or West Bank truly believe that they've got to kill all the Jews. That is a fact. And there's just no getting around that. Not like, are they also victims of Hamas? Absolutely they are, because Hamas does not care about them at all. Hamas uses them as a tool to they know how the Western press works, and they've been playing us like a fiddle for decades. And they know that they can use civilians as human shields. They know that they can hide weapons. They can commit war crimes over and over and over and over again. And as long as it results in civilians dying, the Western press will use it as a way to point that Israel is trying to kill all the Palestinians, instead of like understanding that what's happening is that Hamas wants those civilian casualties. And the best, there are so many good examples of this, but the one I point to a lot is Mahdi Talib, I think is his name. He's at the Free Press now. He was at AP, and he there's a clip of him on Instagram, giving this speech, and he's basically saying, like, look, I think I was the first person to change an article because of a threat from Hamas. Like, basically, I had a source inside of Gaza, as a great reporter, came to me with this information, and basically the information was Hamas is dressing up as civilians. This is in 2008. They're dressing as civilians so that when they get killed, they're counting them as civilians. And not only that, like, obviously the enemy can't tell who's who, and there's all this deception going on. Well, that person ends up calling and be like, you got to take that out, because the underlying story is Hamas has figured out who I am, and they are threatening to kill me and my family if you don't change that. And he petitioned the AP at the time, who he worked for, to at least put a note in the article that, like, we have changed this article to comply with Hamas propaganda. Like, it's fair to at least say what happened. We'll take the thing out, and they wouldn't do it. So that's been going on since 2008. That was only 2 years after Hamas came in power. They absolutely know how to do this stuff. There were people on the left celebrating October 7th before Israel did anything. So don't tell me this is about Israel's actions. Don't tell me this is about Israel's missteps in the war or things that we don't agree with. There are plenty of people in Israel that disagree with Bibi Netanyahu. They don't like him. They don't think he's leading this war well. They blame him for October 7th in the first place. And I would never say that those people in Israel are anti-Semitic. That doesn't fly. But I do think a lot of people on the left hide behind this. No, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm anti-Zionist, which, again, I was just like, so you just don't think Jews should have a place to live?
Right.
And so anyway, the point is, we're never really having the fair conversation, because people will accuse Israel of a genocide or let's just take the recognition of the Palestinian state that we just saw a bunch of European countries do. How do you think that benefits the people in Gaza or West Bank? You're legitimizing their terrorist overlords, right? I mean, because we both agree that they're led by lunatics. I mean, I think anyone that doesn't agree with that, I go, you are then an anti-Semite. Because if you don't think people that say they want to eliminate all Jews everywhere they are in the world, if you think they're okay to lead a country, you're legitimizing Hamas. And they're trying to say, yeah, but Hamas has to go. Well, they're the state right now. You know what I mean? Like, so you've got to say, we want there to be a Palestinian state. I have no problem with saying that. I have no problem with people saying there should be two-state solutions, whatever. There's all the solutions that are out there. And I would love to see the Palestinian people raise up and say they're not going to take this from Hamas anymore. But they're not very capable of doing it. And then you also just look at, this is not an Arab versus Jew thing either, because people are always like, oh, Israel's blocking, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, they share a border with Egypt too. Why is Egypt closed their border? Yep. It's because they're scared of Hamas, and they're scared of terrorist attack happening on their soil. They already
went through that.
And they've been through this, right? Yeah. And so I go, okay, this is not as simple as Jew versus Arab, because this is Egypt, Arab majority, Gaza, and Egypt doesn't trust Hamas or Gazans. It's so much more complicated, and I just find that there's almost nowhere having a nuanced conversation about it. I do not think Israel has done everything right. It would be impossible for anyone to in any kind of war situation. No one has. We didn't do it right. But the thing I point to all the time is that when you look at the civilian to combat ratio of killings in Gaza specifically, this entire time for almost 2 years now, it's like 1.5 to 1. Like ours was like 9 to 1 in Afghanistan or something, or in Iraq and stuff. It's unheard of in urban warfare. It's literally something that militaries are studying because they're like, how did you pull this off? They've dropped more bombs than they've killed people so does that mean they're bad shots? Like, if you're trying to do a genocide, you could just kill everyone. Like, Israel has the power to do it. They're telegraphing their moves. Yeah. They're dropping leaflets. They're announcing stuff. Part of the reason they've had to level so much of the Gaza Strip is because they will move people out of an area, And then they go start searching house by house for tunnels. And what they were finding is like bombs. Like they're rigged to kill. Well, so do you think the IDF should send soldiers into their death to search a place? No, they're sending drones in now. And once they see it tripwired up, they just blow the whole building. They literally just call in a missile. They blow the whole thing up because it's not worth losing more lives. But they've got to find Hamas. And so they're just blowing, like, that's why they're leveling buildings. They're not doing it for funsies. They're doing it because Hamas already rigged the buildings to blow if they walk into them. They're booby-trapping stuff. Hamas has committed every war crime there is, and yet no one talks about them.
You've also got a situation where you have a captured people. So, southern border, Egypt doesn't want them.
Right.
No other nation there, or nation state, will take Palestinian refugees.
Nope. No other Arab country will.
And yet you can't go in and conduct your insurgencies to take out and target Hamas. So the only criticism maybe is, well, how come Israel can't filter through the people who are not Hamas and good people and,
because Hamas is making that very, very hard. They're hiding amongst those people
Agreed. So you've got all these Arab nations not wanting to take them in. And then the other thing that has been so ignored and convoluted and a bunch of bullshit is everyone's talking about the history of the land that goes back, and it's always been Palestinian. And I've had so many conversations with various people on this, Blake, and it's tiring. It really is.
Yeah, but I mean, again, you go, okay, I'll forgive the ignorance for people that aren't Christian or Jewish, but I find it hard to believe that they don't know that history of the Jews, not just like the history of the ancient Bible stuff. Like, I mean, these guys were slaves in Egypt and stuff like that. And this is Promised Land. And even if you don't want to buy that stuff, I mean, there's historical accuracy to that you have to believe some of it. And then, but like, okay, we don't have to go back 3,000 years. We can go back to the 1930s where they were ran out of every European country. And so I go, okay, where do you want to go? And I go, has Israel ever started a conflict? No, they've not.
I mean, you can even go before 1930s, go to what, 1917? Right?
Yeah, but I mean, Israel's not a nation until 1947. So you like,
no, what I mean is
as far as for something, but yeah.
As far as people that became displaced.
Yes.
Ottoman Empire.
Yep.
And then the people who claim to be Palestinians of the land and have heritage were people who sided with the Ottoman Empire to help them push out the Jewish people who became displaced. There was always a Jewish presence. So I'm pretty sure it sounds like you and I know enough on this, and you can even go back further. The tribes of Judah that became the Jewish people, even going further than that. And
also show me any territory in the entire world that has been the same group of people the entire time. Oh, like you can't even find one that's lasted for thousands of years. I mean, like China's fighting with people about their land. I mean, like Russia's doing the same. Like this is a normal thing. It's not been normal for our lifetime because post World War II, we said no one is doing this conquest for territory anymore, and we're going to make sure it doesn't happen. And not that it's not happened at all since then, but like you don't get a Germany trying to take over the world. You don't get like that kind of thing happening since then. And what people forget is that in every war, the aggressor, if they go in and try to fight someone and they lose that war, territory is almost always something they have to give up. And Germany had to do it for a while. I mean, like obviously the Soviet Union had to break up, even though that's not even like they lost the Cold War or whatever. But Germany had to do it. You had a split thing. You had Berlin Wall. You had all that kind of stuff. Japan had to relegate a lot of power and stuff like that. And we said we're going to build these nations back up. We didn't have to do that. Like we were the exception to the rule. Most of the time when you win a war, you just go like, you're ours now. Like that's what happens when you get attacked and then you win that war is that and that's what is like all of the territory Israel has ever taken or expanded has been after they were attacked by not normally even just one nation. It was like multiple nations around them. And they win the war and then they go, the consequence for that is, like there should be, like we talked about gun violence. There should be consequences for invading another country. I hope that Russia has consequences for having done it. I think they already have some in just the amount of people that have been wounded or killed.
I think
they
will. I think they will.
And so there are consequences to starting a war. And for some reason, and I think it's anti-Semitism, None of those rules apply to Israel. So we apply a different standard to Israel than we do to every other country in the world. Any other country that got attacked, I don't believe for a second if cartels in Mexico, let's just pretend the cartels totally had control of Mexico. I mean, I think that's not that far off. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure how much that's pretend.
But like, they don't have a Hamas level of control over stuff. But let's just pretend they did. And they came across our border and murdered, I think the math would be 30,000 people in Texas. Like, if you're looking proportionally. Do you really think that like anyone would blame us for going into Mexico and just bombing the absolute crap out of the cartels? No.
I mean,
we've
already proven what we would do if we can.
Yeah.
If we were.
World War II. That's when it happens. We get bombed at Japan, and that's even relatively smaller number than got killed of Israel's population on October 7th.
The thing is, with the Middle East, has been in constant conflict forever, all over, or not over, but under the guise of control of a holy land or under the guise of religion. That's what it's always been about. Yeah. But today's conflicts, if we're looking at extremist Islamists or extreme Islamists who are using their religion of Islam, not even the true faith. They're using the extreme side of that to try to gain support, subjugate people, and all they really are doing is using it to be vicious dictatorial rulers, authoritarians. I mean, that's all they want is power and money.
And that's even
less about the religious aspect.
That's even between different versions of those Islamic extremists.
Absolutely.
And so now I have more hope about the Middle East than I have in a while, in the sense that, like, I'm going to give Donald Trump the credit in that the Abraham Accords were like a legitimate thing I did not think was possible. And I think what has slowly happened is that more Arab countries don't want to be, in the like constantly turmoil of the Middle East. I think they realize like there are economic benefits to not allowing terrorism to happen and to protecting your people and let people flourish. And you're slowly starting to see more people disassociate from Iran. Iran is obviously the gigantic thing that we've never mentioned Iran, but Iran is absolutely stoking all of this. Like they support Hamas, they support Hezbollah. I know
they fund all these terrorist organizations and use them as their proxy so that they are not directly involved and can say, hey, it wasn't me. We didn't do it.
But I think like the combination of the Abraham Accords that had a few nations come on this and start supporting it. And then you see during this conflict, you see nations like Jordan and stuff like swatting missiles and drones out of the air because they're in their airspace. And they're like, hey, you're in our airspace. They wouldn't have done that 20 years ago. So I see that. And then I see more people like Egypt, it's like they don't want the thing is more and more people are wanting to be allies with Israel in the sense that like we want to trade. Like we want to we don't want this. Like you're seeing that happen more and more.
Well,
I don't think it's going to be
the biggest tell to that is when Israel when they launched that attack to kill those 5 Hamas leaders, right, in Qatar. Qatar was not happy about them invading their airspace and violating their sovereignty by doing that. But at the same time, after they had their emergency meeting with the Arab Islamist nations, everybody was mad. They called on Donald Trump even saying, hey, you have leverage over Israel. Can you please rein them in? But none of them attacked Israel. I think on one side, they probably realized like Hamas, yes, is a problem. We need to find a solution. I think personally that a lot of the Arab nations that you were just speaking of, I think they want to modernize and move forward and are getting tired of being held back by this constant bickering and bullshit. But they even have a hard time getting a handle on these extremists because you're literally fighting some guerrilla warfare within their own.
And it's evil. Yeah. Again, it's like people that are willing to. Absolutely. It's very hard to stop people that are willing to kill themselves to kill other people. It's very hard to stop that.
Fanatics. They're just fanatics.
They're fanatics, and so like that is the part where I go. All of that. It's like I have more hope than I have in the sense that there are some more normalized relations. You look at like no one defended Iran in any of this stuff. Iran didn't even really retaliate. They kind of like threw a few things Israel's way, but they knew it wasn't going to work.
No, they knew. So let's get back to the European nation. Let's just specifically Starmer and Macron. What do you think of these people that are calling for this recognition of statehood? Now, here's the thing you touched on a bit. when you were talking about recognizing them as a state. But the problem with this, if they do this, then now it literally becomes a conflict between legitimized, recognized states or nations, right? So now
Yeah.
is it considered a legitimate war between two states?
That's what I don't think they're thinking of the consequences of this. I don't
Yeah.
think they've really thought about what it means for them. I think it's virtue signaling is what it is.
Right.
You mentioned that earlier. And it's basically like I'm signaling to, and first of all, I have this conversation with lots of people fairly often because I think so much of it is anti-Semitic. And like I said, I don't think most of the time they realize they're really being anti-Semitic. They just don't even understand what they're saying. They're just parroting what they heard. And I think it's understandable for people to be really upset about seeing people like civilians and kids dying. Like I think that that's
Yeah,
a totally normal
is.
reaction to be outraged about it. I just don't feel like I felt I feel like specifically that October 7th didn't get the press coverage that that anything that the IDF does wrong, be it a mistake or bad behavior. Like I think
But
both those things happen. And I don't see, like, what I saw after October 7th was a bunch of people cheering on women getting like raped and then murdered. And doing it in front of their friends and watching their friends die and killing parents in front of kids and kids in front of parents. Like the barbarism of what Hamas did that day should have been the thing that like totally did them in. Now they knew what they were doing by pulling hostages in. They had this plan all along. They knew what the goal was, is to entrench
well, yeah, they trained
Israel into this long
obviously-
thing, because Israel will like look worse and worse the longer it goes on. And they control everything. They control the Ministry of Health. They control any press in there is controlled by them. They don't let anyone in. So no one really knows what's going on. So and for whatever reason, our Western journalists choose to believe Hamas over anyone else. And I think that speaks to the anti-Semitism of it. Like I said, I can't.
Like
think
Israel
of a
was
better-
criticized for the response before they even responded.
They weren't criticized for the response. People were cheering it on while people were still being raped and murdered in Israel while it was happening. And cheering it on and going like, this is what's turning it into oppressors versus oppressed. Again, that's a left problem, is everything is about who's the victim and who's the person victimizing, who's the oppressor, who's the oppressed, who is the settler, who is they've turned this whole thing into like everyone's evil, America's evil. And again, they've been indoctrinated to believe that anytime there's a power dynamic that's different, that the person that has more power is evil and the person that has less power is good. And that is just flawed. That is not if someone's abusing their power, but like, again, the oppressor in this case. And so we excuse it. And they did. I mean, like you saw on college campuses, you saw on the progressive left, you saw a celebration, not just like I think sometimes people have to be violent to get rid of their oppressor. It was like a celebration.
What-
And I just go, when it's always Jews that you're celebrating dying, there's a problem. Like you're not calling out China's oppression of Uyghurs. You're not calling out
I think you're thinking a lot of what I'm already thinking before I say it. It's funny.
Right. There are actual genocides happening all over the world.
there
And
is.
yet the one we talk about is the alleged one that Israel is like, they're the worst at genocide anyone's ever been.
Well,
If they're trying to kill all the Palestinians, because they could drop one bomb tomorrow and be done.
they
with it.
could, but let's talk about two things first. Let's go back to a statement from River to Sea.
Yeah.
I find it ironic that people are criticizing Israel for genociding people when they literally could do it probably within 7 to 10 days. Now, from the river to the sea literally means genociding Jews, like getting rid of them all. And Hamas has literally said, like you stated earlier, that they want to eliminate all Jews. Here's
everywhere in the world, not just in the land
just
that they
eradicate
think they
them.
should occupy. Like all of them, we want them eradicated. And I think it's really important that people understand that, because
Right,
I don't
but-
think that is being. The New York Times does not mention that.
Let's talk about this other situation about recognizing the Palestinian statehood. Now,
Mhm.
we have an issue they have an issue in the UK with mass immigration of people that are unchecked and unvetted.
Mhm.
You just saw what happened. It was either today or yesterday in Italy, right? That uprising and riot over the Italian government not wanting to recognize the Palestinian state.
Yep.
So they had this giant riot with everybody on the streets holding Palestinian flags. The UK is having these issues right now. France has always had an issue with all of this. So now if they're all going to recognize them, they already have all of these people who support Palestine, who are obviously Arab or from those regions. I'm sorry, but they just infiltrated you. And now that after you recognize the Palestinian state, now they have even more of a reason to turn on you and claim your land for Palestine.
And again, I think
I might be way off on that, but I kind of see it. I mean, it seems like this has been a long-term plan that's been put in place, and they have been using and actually doing for quite some time.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't even think it's. Well, there's several things going on there.
There's a lot.
There's a whole lot, yeah.
And it's not just about Palestine,
right.
Honestly.
So what's interesting about all of this is that I would put people in two different buckets. If you have fled to another country, like not saying great things about your country, probably. You at least thought wherever you went to, like I said, a lot of refugee kind of situations. You got people from Syria, you've got people from all these war-torn areas of the Middle East because of these conflicts that have been going on, often between two different versions of Arabs, right? Like what happened in Syria is like nothing to do with Jews, right? Or like not nothing, because I mean, obviously there's a American, there's things, and that's where I can't get with the right and the left now, that like everything is explained by Jews are nefariously controlling everything. Like that's just where everything goes eventually now. But like in those situations, like you cannot blame the Jews for Syria. You cannot blame the Jews for Iraq, Iran, or like any of these places where people are being legitimately oppressed by the people that are in power that like really just do that so that they can oppress people. Like the goal is power and oppression and money and all the things that go along with it, or just religious fervor, whatever it might be. But these people have fled those places to go to other countries. And I would be willing to bet, I've not seen any polls that say this, but I'd be willing to bet most of them are not immediately in a situation where they feel like they're going to defend their home country that they fled and be against the country that has accepted them, right? I would just think that for the most part, that's not how it's going to work. I'm not going to say they're going to but what I think happens is that there are bad seeds in those groups of people, just like everyone else. I don't think it's all of them. I don't even know if it's a high percentage of it. I don't know the numbers, but I do know that like in Britain, there have been a bunch of gang rapes essentially by like refugees from specifically like
Somalia.
A lot of the middle, Somalia.
It is happening and it's verifiable. But
and then what happens is that like there's been massive covers up that, because like the politicians can't talk about it. And it's not for fear of being attacked necessarily from those communities. It's from being called racist by the sort of look. And so to me, it's like they're capitulating to, there's a bunch of people defending a group of people unnecessarily because they're worried it's racist to call out rapist, doesn't matter what their skin color is. And to me, that's the rape thing specifically is like such a thing where it's like similar to the Palestinian statehood kind of thing, in the sense that there's pressure to do that. But like that's such a good example of like we've got verifiable evidence that like the police didn't pursue it, politicians didn't pursue it, newspapers tried to cover it up and pretend it wasn't happening because everyone was so scared of being called racist, right? And that's really where the pressure came from, like from my understanding of it. And maybe that was coming from those communities, but it doesn't seem like that, like electorally, that doesn't work out. They're not a majority. Like they can cause a bunch of noise and stuff, but it's that there's a bunch of Britons and there's a bunch of French people and there's a bunch of Americans that are buying into that narrative. It's like I am related to people that have bought into the anti-Semitic stuff, and they're all in on the like essentially anti-Semitism of like from the river to the sea, and Palestine are the good guys and here's all the bad guys. Again, everything's black and white, and that's unfortunately because they're on TikTok and that's where they get their news. And China has no interest in throwing pro-Israel stuff in our.
Let's address something though.
Yeah,
I agree with you. True refugees don't have a problem with. Okay, what I'm seeing a problem with is this is obviously, to me, organized, because if you see what's going on in the UK,
some of it is, yeah, for sure.
You are seeing where now they're trying to push their it's not going to probably happen soon, I don't know, but Sharia law in some areas. You have complete communities that are completely just Muslim. You have Muslims that are that are becoming mayors, or becoming I'm not sure the complete political structure, but anyway, they're in
Well,
city
the London's
governments,
mayors,
etc.
yeah. I mean, like, yeah.
But not just that, but other positions. They're pressuring the police. If you look at Ireland, the people of Ireland aren't they're not very happy with what's been happening.
And they're super anti-Semitic.
Now, if and this is this is going to be my point, Blake. If it was all about refugees and it wasn't about some kind of planned operation with Palestine, then why aren't these refugees going there and standing up for a free, democratic Syria?
Oh, right. Yeah.
No one's going and saying, I want a free, democratic Somalia. I want a free, democratic Syria, or, whatever it is. It's all free Palestine. It's all Palestine, Palestine, Palestine.
I think most of that is the anti-Semitism. Like I do like it's because it's
so?
Israel. And I think that when you get to all those other conflicts, Israel is not the primary, like one of two sides on it. And so it's just like, they can't blame, like the Jews are going to get blamed for everything if they can get blamed for it. And so you can't blame them for Syria. You can't blame them for Afghanistan. You can't, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you can't. And so it's just an inconvenient conversation at that point.
What about the African refugees though? That are from Islamist states as well. Israel's pretty far removed from those conflicts.
But it's sort of the same situation there. It's like most people are not talking about those conflicts. Like that is not something that gets brought up ever to me, is like the Somalian stuff or even like Pakistan, India stuff. Like,
right.
Unless it deals with Jews. And like I said, I go, okay, what's like, you'd say it's a power dynamic. Well, how is that not with India and Pakistan? Like, there's a power dynamic there too. India is much more powerful than Pakistan is. Like,
and they've got a long history though, those two countries.
I know, and like that's the problem, is that there's a lot of history and all this stuff. I also just don't think it's realistic to have I think it's very rose-colored glasses and optimistic to think that like this is not something that humans are going to deal with always. Like we fight over stupid stuff. It's like, you look at, like, speaking of genocides, it's like Rwanda, like that was like, they were trying to find a racial difference between each other, and it was totally arbitrary, and it was a genocide. And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense to us. And it's because humans are fallen and evil, and like we will find the thing that makes a difference between us, and we will kill each other for it. And that sometimes that's race, sometimes that's religion, sometimes it's like we want that land and you've got it. Sometimes it's resources. Sometimes it is just, I think we need an enemy, and so especially people in power have to do that. So like Hamas needs the Jews to be their enemy, because otherwise they can't demand the control and the things they do to they're not citizens, it's not the right way to say it, but like they're subjects essentially. And so, I mean, I think that's like, it's not that I don't think it's sincere. I do think Hamas legitimately hates Jews. I think that they've indoctrinated it. And it's like, you've got, like I said, when you start doing that with kids from the youngest age, you're brainwashing them into thinking a group of people are evil based on their religion or where they live or whatever the situation is. And we're doing that in America with the left indoctrination stuff that you talked about. It's like you're telling kids from a very early age that America's a bad place. There's nothing to be proud of. If you're white, you are guilty of there were literally teachers during the whole Black Lives Matter stuff that were like, well, what about me? I'm mixed race. Well, you're an oppressor. If you've got any white in you, you're the bad guy. Well, like,
you have inherent.
What does that do to a kid when you tell them they're a bad person because of the color of their skin? Again, it's just like that has happened throughout human history.
But the thing with the Jews is like you said, everyone says they control America, and they're the real reason why all of these conflicts are happening around the world. But think about it: are the Jews, or is Israel behind the enslavement of Congolese in the Congo because of the cobalt mines right now? Or are they responsible for what's going on in Somalia, like you mentioned earlier? Are they responsible for what's happening between Pakistan and India, which has been going on for years?
I've had some conversations about this with people where I'm like,
how about what's going on in Nepal? Is that the Jews' fault?
Right. But like the thing is, what I often get people to admit, especially if they're like very conspiratorial, and it's not that I think that there's no such thing as a conspiracy theory that's true.
Conspiracies.
They're fun, and like I'm like all about like looking into, but like once you buy into any conspiracy theory that says nefarious thing happened and it didn't happen the way we thought it happened, that there were a group of people that planned that thing to happen. So Oklahoma City bombing, 9/11,
Right.
Iraq war, pick it. Pick any, October 7th, like pick anything. Charlie Kirk's assassination, Donald Trump's near assassination, anything
Yes.
where someone goes, this is not true. What really happened is there's a group of people that did this. So I start talking to these people, and what happens every time, and this is why I think it's really dangerous in America right now, but I think this happens everywhere. It's just that, and the Jews have been the most popular end game of this, because what happens is I had like a 3-hour conversation with the guy about 9/11 on 9/11 because it was fun. We went back and forth and stuff, and I'm generally interested. I'm like, I want to see why you think that this was an inside job. Give me the evidence. I'll rebut it with my evidence and stuff. And it was a great conversation. But in that conversation, what I kept going to is like, okay, let's just say you're right. How many people do you think it would take to pull that off? Thousands, right? Okay, so thousands of people kept a secret. Let's say that that's possible. I don't think it is. I think the government's very bad at everything they do. I find it very hard to believe the government could do that, right? Moon landing. You think 400,000 people kept that a secret and Russia never wanted to find out and all these kind of things. Okay, so then I go, okay, so let's say that happened. Same thing with, let's say the Jews killed Charlie Kirk, which, by the way, that was the most disgusting part about his memorial service is Tucker Carlson getting up there and blaming Jews for it in a wink, wink, nudge, nudge
Yeah.
way. The fact that they allowed him on stage is proof that it wasn't about Charlie Kirk, because like he's been the one spouting these conspiracy theories that Erica, his wife, is. It makes me furious. Anyway, the point is,
well, between him and Candace Owens, man, I mean,
right. So when you get on that role, if I say, okay, so that's true. Do those people control everything in our government? Yes. Okay. Why is our government so bad at everything? The next place you go is, well, that's on purpose. They're the shadow government. They're really good at stuff, but they put people they're inept. They can't do stuff so they can control them like puppets. Okay, let's say that's the case. So do you think those people also control Russia? Because wouldn't it be in Russia and China's interest to discover that George Bush did 9/11, and then they would they would send that everywhere, right? Because that would be embarrassing. And then the next place someone goes is, well, no, they to some degree they control every country in the world. Once you get to that point, there's no one you can say that does that other than the Jews. I've never heard it explained as anyone else other than the Jews. And it, like I said, you pull on any one of those threads, that the world is flat, that 9/11 was an inside job, that Oklahoma City, and like I said, I think all of these things, sometimes we get a story that's not the entire story. Normally it's because governments are embarrassed about their failures. So I think that some of the Saudi stuff with 9/11 is better explained by probably we having a conversation with them that goes like, we don't have an interest in going to war with you guys, but if you are even remotely involved in something similar to this again, we will absolutely blow you off the face of the earth. I think that probably happened. Oklahoma City bombing, we got too focused on one person. We didn't like to look at some of these other things. We didn't like to really talk about the white nationalist stuff that was going on that influenced him. We just said, like, we've got our guy, we've got the conviction. We don't want to bring in any sort of extra things that are going to maybe make prosecution hard. Law enforcement gets tunnel vision. There's mistakes that happen in all of these things. I'm not saying that like the government is never lying to us. The government lies to us all the time, which is why I don't trust them. But anytime you start saying there's a nefarious group of people that control it, it always ends up being Jews. And then you have to start going, okay, so 2.3% of the country is Jewish, and you think they control everything. You think they're tricking us into supporting Israel. You think they're tricking us into supporting Ukraine if you're on that side, or you think they're into Russia if you're on the other side. Like I said, Hitler blamed Jews for both communism and capitalism.
And it's like even
a convenient scapegoat.
Just even bring back the Middle East. You're talking about like a dot on the map compared to, I mean, how many Muslim countries was it? 60 or 70 something? Is that correct?
Oh, how many there are total?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I think it was somewhere in that number.
That would make sense. Yeah.
And you got Israel, right? And they're the problem.
And by the way, it's not just about Jew versus Arab. It's also like democracy versus.
Oh, no. Like, I get it.
There's just all sorts of other things there. And there's
just using it as an example of like, how was this small dot like the ire of the world? Like
they've goaded everyone into attacking them first so that they can fight back and win territory. Why would they not just attack people if they're this nefarious group?
I've only had some issues with Israel to the point that there are times where I think that they're using the U.S. as an excuse to do certain things, in my opinion, because we're always backing them and we are like right there standing behind them. And one of the examples I've used was what they did when Qatar, right?
Mhm.
Recently, they would have never done that if because they put the U.S. in the middle, and this is my criticism of Israel, not Jews, but Israel as a
And
nation.
it's totally fair.
Yeah.
Like you can absolutely say that.
Qatar is supposed to be one of our allies, and
Yep.
and they've been named one of our greatest allies that is not a NATO nation, not like Israel.
Yeah,
But
they're playing both sides all the time.
Of
But
course they are.
we know that, and it's part of it.
But the reality is, they also host our largest military base in the Middle East. It is CENTCOM.
Mhm.
Israel does this, pisses Qatar off. Qatar calls on the U.S. or Donald Trump to reign in Israel. See the situation? It's like, I get it. I get what Israel is doing, but like, did you think about like what would happen if?
Here's what bothers. Well, it's a double-edged sword.
You understand where I'm going?
I do. I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like they're like because we've got their back, they're willing to do things that maybe they wouldn't otherwise. However, again, this is a double-edged sword. I think Donald Trump and Republicans in America I think we've changed the course of the world for a very long time. You go back to World War II and you basically said America was that country for 80 years. What we said went, and we were maybe kind of bullies about it sometime, but like when someone was our ally, we defended them. And when they were our enemy, and so like the point was people needed to be scared of America they didn't want to mess with us. Does that make sense? Like if we said we had someone's back, we generally proved that we had people's back. So the Gulf War is a great example of that, of saying like, no, we're not going to stand for that. And then they did it.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. And what I think we've squandered is now the whole world knows that we don't have, like the people who we call our allies, we don't actually have their back most of the time. And so what I think really happened is I think Israel actually used to be more like clearing everything with the US. And then Joe Biden, I don't think it started just under Joe Biden, but I just know that like October 7th happens. And so it's a lot more in focus than it has been for a while. You know, he is dragging his feet on stuff, on a lot of things. And he's saying, don't do anything. Don't go into Rafah. Don't attack Hezbollah. Everything that he told them not to do, they did anyway, because I think that they saw that like, it's our survival. It's not about like what will make the US happy. It's like, these people are trying to eliminate us and we're not doing that anymore. And so in a way, it's almost like America's weakness allows Israel to do whatever they want now, because like we can't rein them in. I mean, to some degree, maybe we can, but I think the problem is like we told them no on all that stuff. And if they would have listened to us, Iran would not be in the position they are. Hezbollah would not be almost eliminated. Hamas would not be in the position, like even the Houthis. I mean, they've done a better job against the Houthis than we have, and they were attacking our ships. So in some ways, I think America went from being the people that were like, hey, we've got these people's back. You don't test it. Don't, but Obama says he puts a red line with Syria and lets them cross it. And I think slowly what Europe and everyone has realized is that America doesn't really have its allies' backs, which is why I think Donald Trump just hopes it'll work out, that they don't turn to other people. But they're like smaller countries they're going to get pushed around by bigger countries, and they're going to have to capitulate to someone. That's going to be Russia or China now. And and Europe doesn't trust us. By the way, speaking of JD Vance is the next nominee, like that Signal chat proved more than anything that like that is the real JD Vance. He actually hates Europe and doesn't want to do anything that could help them. That was a situation. Remember, the whole Signalgate thing was about like, he was just pissed that like, oh, I just hate that we're bailing out Europe again. Once you know that that's true and that is like a fact of the Republican Party, you are going to go, we got to fend for ourselves. And I think that what happens now is that really Israel has decided we are actually the only people that have our interest at heart. America doesn't. No one else does.
I get you.
Does that make sense?
What I'm thinking is this: look, Israel. I think Israel has a right to do whatever the hell they want, but that certain situation is like when you're jeopardizing the largest military base in the area, that the U.S. that's ours, and then we're at the same time here to support you. It kind of jeopardizes that, right?
Yeah. And
but I'm not saying in any other case like Israel couldn't do whatever they wanted, because we would. I mean, no one tells us no. But let's go to Europe, though. What you're saying about what JD Vance said, yes, wrong. That should not have been made public. But a lot of that was driven by the sentiment that, hey, the U.S. is paying into NATO and doing all of this, and we're getting called to help you out with the Russia-Ukraine situations. Like, at what point are you guys not going to stand up and do something?
Yeah, we've essentially subsidized their welfare states.
I think that's what that. I'm not saying it's right, by the way, but I know that's
true.
where a lot of that came from.
That is true.
75% of NATO was always paid by the United States of America.
I don't know if
you
it
could
was
also
that
argue,
high,
yes, it was.
but yeah.
Yes, it was.
Well, but here's the word the problem is.
But we are NATO. You can say that too.
First of all, we're the only country that NATO's ever, the Article 5 thing of defending a NATO nation, the only country that's ever called for that is us after 9/11.
After 9/11. Yeah.
We're the only ones. So we've never had to bail out any of those countries, actually. Now, we were actually hitting the budgetary, what we all agreed we were going to do, whatever it was, 2.5%.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's supposed to be 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of countries that said, we don't have to do that. We'd rather spend that on everyone having health care, and the U.S. will just let us get away with that for forever. Donald Trump came in and said no. And first of all, some of that started changing by him just making the threats of like, we're not going to have your back. Now, I don't love his style, but some of it worked, But what really worked was Russia invading Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Poland's doing like 7% now. Because they're not like, this is not a drill anymore. They're going like, it's
Poland
very
is not
real.
messing around down there. I'll tell you
Not
that
at
right
all.
now.
And so what it took was of real world events of Russia invading another European country to realize, oh yeah, we've seen this before. We know where this goes, and everyone,
they will not stop.
And everyone stepped it up. So no, as far as I know, there is no European country that's not going well beyond 2.5%.
Yeah,
I think Germany's now talking about doing rearmament of all sorts of stuff.
Right? But that may be now. That wasn't the case before, right?
Right.
That was the thing, and I think that's what led to why JD Vance said what he said. I'm not excusing him. But look, you're the vice president of the United States, but at the same time, everybody in America felt that way.
But why not take the advantage of the win of saying like, thank you all for getting on board. It sucks that I've been telling you this for years, and it took Russia invading a neighboring country.
Were told that.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like
that was said.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it needed to be more like I'm all for the carrot and stick stuff. I'm all for saying, like I said, throwing our weight around. Like I think the world is a better place when America throws its weight around for the right things, for democracies and for the things we believe in. Because I think for the most part, historically, they've been the right things. I think free speech is the right thing. I think JD Vance was correct to go over there and call out all the European countries for their like incredibly illiberal views on speech. Now, I have no problem with that. But I also think you could be like, I would have done that speech differently. What I would have said is like, we've been harping on you guys for years to spend the appropriate military budgets that you agreed to so that we'd have your back. And we appreciate that you had our back after 9/11. It took Russia invading Ukraine for you to realize that you need to get your act together. And thank you for doing that. Now I'd like you to do that with free speech too. Like, I don't think you realize how dangerous this road is you're going down. But the truth is JD Vance doesn't actually care about free speech. He makes that speech, but then he's not saying anything about the Trump administration trying to stop speech. And so it just feels insincere. And to me, I think America is best when we're throwing our weight around, but in a way that says, this is better for everyone. If we all, the reason NATO went 80 years without, until 9/11, which wasn't even an attack from another country. It's a terrorist organization. It's something we couldn't have dreamed up in 1945. But like when that happens, we're the ones that go, hey, come join us. And like, but also, I don't believe for a second we wouldn't have had any of those people's backs if it would have happened too, which is why I think we prevented a World War III from happening.
I think in the end, if this situation with Russia really pops off, I think we will have their back. I know that,
I think we will too.
Yeah, and I think right now there's a lot of doubt, but when push comes to shove, we're going to get in there. The whole thing with that Russia-Ukraine situation, and there's a lot. I don't know if we have a lot of time to go into it, but the reality is this. Is World War III was the threat. They did not want to go to war with a very capable nuclear nation. Yep. Period. Now they're getting ground down slowly over time because of the resilience of the Ukrainian army or military, and even though
which no one saw coming.
Exactly.
Everyone thought that thing would be over in 2 weeks, and I think Putin thought it would be over in 2 weeks.
Right.
I obviously did not go according to plan.
But all because of the threat of a nuclear war is why nobody got involved. But everybody was crying for us, let's just be quite honest about it, to go over there and handle the situation. It's like, wait a minute, this is in your backyard, United Kingdom and France.
Which is why they did step up. I mean, that's why like
they
Poland's
did eventually,
not messing around anymore.
They should have stopped it from the get-go.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you have to go back to like 2008 to really stop this invasion of Ukraine from happening. Like I said, I think
Obama?
this was a failure under Bush, Obama, and Biden.
Yeah.
It actually did not happen under Trump the first time. Like Trump, that's fair. Like he gets to claim, hey, I'm the only president in the last 20 years that Russia hasn't invaded Ukraine to some degree. And again, now this is more complicated because obviously you're talking about two nuclear powers. But what has bothered me about our positioning in foreign affairs has been everything has been about worrying of escalation. And so even with Iran, like everything that Joe Biden did with regard to the Israel and Hamas stuff was like, we're worried about poking Iran. And I'm like, Iran should be scared of poking us. Like it should. Now Russia's different. They've got nuclear weapons and Putin's crazy probably. Again, though, they should be as scared of our nuclear deterrent as we are of theirs. And they should be scared of NATO. But the truth, I mean, like, you know who loves NATO, like not having each other's backs? China and Russia. Like they're super happy about it because they know it's a legitimate force that could stop them.
Let's talk about that dynamic though, because you brought up Iran. Russia isn't just that they're the nuclear power. You got to look at Russia, and we don't know how much they'll back them, but allegedly, China is an ally. North Korea is an ally. Well,
for now.
Hold on. North Korea is an ally, right?
Yeah.
North Korea actually sent troops. And at some point, China did say that they had Russia's back, and then they reneged on it, right? Iran has a relationship with Russia as well. Now, the thing that is not in Iran's favor is that Russia will never be able to back them because they cannot fight on two different fronts. They just can't right now. They're not in that position. But
it turns out they weren't as good at fighting on one front as they thought they would be. Yeah.
I mean, Afghanistan, right? They got pushed back by the rebels that were trained by, our people. But the thing with Iran is they support Russia. Russia or the Soviet Union supports Iran, and that goes way back, that history. So a lot of people don't even realize that these relationships were already in place. So I think with Iran, that is one thing to think about right there is will Russia actually step up and side with Iran to help fight if it came down to it? I don't think so.
No, I don't think any of them would. North Korea is the exception to that.
I think he's just ready to do, I don't know. He's wanting to prove something. He's just waiting.
I think that the problem...
He's the wild card.
Yeah, obviously Russia did not... Putin would not have invaded if he could have seen the future. I think that it, first of all, it exposed the Russian military.
I don't think he thought it would go this long.
No, and I don't think he knows. I think what's so stupid about it is that like we're just not good enough to like take advantage of the fact that like I think Russia wants out of this, but they also have to be able to save face. It's like they almost need like us to stop it in some sort of way where they can just blame us for it and not really have to take the loss. I don't know how you do that.
Do you think they also, or Putin was relying on China to be more of an ally and stepping up and really getting involved? And then that didn't happen.
I think they thought it wouldn't have to happen, first of all. But I also think that they do think, my favorite way to refer to them is the axis of assholes, because that's really what it is. But it's not a real alliance. Like you just look at China's trajectory and Russia and like what their stated goals are, and they're in conflict with each other. Like China wants to control the world. So does Russia.
They are.
They can't both.
No, they can't. But they do need each other for now.
Right now they do. Yeah. So it's a convenience thing. And so that can change very quickly. Like I think China, what they love about this, if I had to guess, is that they got to see a preview of what would happen if they invaded Taiwan. You know, they get to see like maybe we're overestimating our military capability. Maybe NATO's not as weak as we thought it was. Like I think I think China benefits immensely from Russia being so of course they're encouraging them to do it. You know what I mean? It's like if it doesn't go well, it doesn't really affect us. Like
China's definitely collecting data, but the only problem with that is they haven't found anything out yet because nobody has directly gotten involved yet.
Yeah, but I mean,
There hasn't been a war.
they have found some. I think they've learned some things. I think they've probably taken a look at their like. First of all, there's a huge problem in dictatorships where you're not, real problems are not bubbling up because if people are scared to be murdered if they cause a problem, like in Russia and China,
Right.
like it's not very likely that it's like a low level. Like everyone is basically faking it and pretend. Like that's why like their tanks like literally just got stuck in the mud. No one had ever flagged that. Well, these things are not made to go into the mud. And like instead of raising that flag up to say, hey, actually, there's a problem with this plan, Mr. Putin, that you have, because you're dead. You're getting thrown out of a window. And like Russia does it in a way that is very like everyone falls out of a window. Like it's public. It's like they're bragging about if you go, not even just go against us. You're just like, you're not good at what you do. We will throw you out of a window and kill you. And so there's like that. You're not going to have a very well functioning government for the most part when that happens.
No.
And I think China maybe is learning from some of that, of like that maybe we're overestimating some of our military capabilities. Maybe we're underestimating Taiwan. Maybe we're like in Taiwan, like geographically is actually even more complicated than Ukraine as far as there's a lot of there's some really interesting articles about like why it would be so hard for China to invade. They'd see it coming. There's all these situations where Taiwan, like, I'm not saying China's not planning ahead. I just think that both of them have an outsized view of their capabilities. And so I think China's learning from that. And I also think China's happy to let Russia be the guinea pigs. I think they can be allies, but they don't really need Russia for anything. They are buying oil, but
I also think that China, if they see anything from this, is that if they wanted to do anything, they pretty much stand on their own. Like, who's their ally? Because even if you look at North Korea, it's already been proven that their own troops turn tail and run once they got a taste of freedom and get in the outside world.
Yeah, because who's fighting someone else's war for territory at this point? Like
I mean, yeah, 2025. Are we still doing this fight? Like that's so stupid to me.
Like even in World War II, it wasn't like Japan and Germany were really allies. You know what I mean?
They weren't.
It's not. No. They're just like two empires that were trying to expand their empires at the same time. It wasn't like one of them was going to win out in that fight at some point. Now, I mean, I think the most interesting Trump theory that I totally buy, and it makes all the sense in the world, is like, and I'll try to find it and send it to you. Basically, it's like explaining how growing up in like New York, sort of more mob-controlled New York, it's like he thinks of the world the way the mob works. It's like you have your area and I have my area, and as long as we don't piss on each other,
right? Like
you get to do your thing, I get to do my thing, and like we demand respect from the bottom up of our thing, and that's why he's always vilifying his friends. Like he doesn't ever, it's like he talks more crap on all those European countries than he does on Russia, than he does on China. He's done more actions with tariffs. Like China is the one country that we need to actually do some trade changes with because they're taking unfair advantage of us. But he's not going after China with tariffs. He's going after he's going after Israel. Israel has a higher tariff than or Brazil, or he's going after it's just whoever pisses him off, whoever's like insufficiently loyal to him. But it's because he thinks he gets to decide what happens in this hemisphere. Russia gets to decide what happens in their area. China gets to do what they do in their area. And I think to some degree kind of feels not the exact same way about Iran because there's the Israel connection there. And so that's more complicated. But he doesn't have an ally he likes better in Russia's region or China's region of power. No. And so he's like, yeah, I like the tough guy thing. Let them do what they want to do. I don't really care. I don't think that's a good way to organize the world. That can't happen without spillover in, like we thought that going into World War II. We thought we can stay out of this. It's not our fight. And I'm not saying that was even wrong to say at the time, especially when we get the benefit of looking back at history and, they didn't know the Holocaust was happening. Like they did not have news reporters on the ground in real time with satellite links. Like it's just more complicated the way information moved. I believe that if we knew more, like if we knew what we knew now, I think we would have gotten in or whatever. I think the American people would have potentially demanded it. But
It would
the
have been a
second
different war for sure.
different war for sure. But
Yeah.
you get attacked at Pearl Harbor and it's like, all right, we're in this. It's like,
Right.
you know, and then it's like, and then once you start realizing what's going on, it's like, no, we've got to push back. We got to make sure this never happens again. Like, so everything that happens after we enter World War II is like, we've got to make sure that empires don't try to expand territorially and murder people in the process.
And I think the lines are drawn at this point. Like we don't need to be going back to the ancient days of, you know, which ruler has the bigger dick and I'm going to take this territory because I think I just need to expand and
I mean,
see
you
over
say
you.
that, except that Donald Trump wants to take Greenland and wants to bully Canada and Mexico more than he bullies
doesn't want
China.
Greenland.
You know what I mean? Like we are allowing
All right.
these,
To be fair, the U.S. did offer to buy Greenland years ago. I forgot what the amount was,
which
but
I think would have been a great plan. I actually think it's a good, like it's a good
there was
strategic
an offer
thing.
made. It was
But we
before
shouldn't
Trump.
talk about invading Greenland. You know,
But you
it's
know
like,
he's trolling half the time. Like I know that you don't like him, and I don't agree with everything he says or does either. But you also got to recognize the troll in him.
right. But do you think you'll get what you want when you do that?
Oh,
I
him?
think that,
Man,
you know what I mean? Like, I don't, I like it, for example, I think
I'm not going to agree. I'm not going to agree with the fact that he would, but there's just a side of him that he just likes to antagonize and poke the bear. And
I
see
think you're
how
totally
far he
right.
can-
I think most of the stuff, it's like most of the stuff we talk about on a daily basis is distraction, and he knows it's distraction. However, I think the other thing he does that's dangerous is he throws something out as a joke
True.
and then judges the reaction based on saying if it's a joke or not.
Oh yeah.
And once anyone starts going like, yeah, we should invade Greenland, or yes, we should tariff Canada and Mexico more than we do China, then he goes, all right, I can roll with this. Because it's like, it's a way to throw a trial balloon out there.
Oh, I always
And
said he stress tests the glass. That's exactly what he does.
That's what he's doing every single time he's stress testing. And the problem is we've got a feedback loop where the Republican Party has said everything he says we have to agree with. And so
True.
he gets that now sometimes people push back. Like some of the hate speech stuff that Pam Bondi did last week was like, Charlie Kirk would have absolutely argued with you that there's free speech and then there's hate speech. Like that's like totally not true. And like, so he got pushback from the right for that. And again, they just get to go like, well, I misspoke, or it was a joke, or I'm just, you know.
right.
And so I don't love that. Like that is always the fallback. I'd rather just be like, say what you mean what you say.
right.
And like Greenland could be a good strategy, but like offer to be like, what I want to do is work with Denmark to like, I want to have that territory for, and here's the reasons why. I think we're scared of Russia. And I think it's like list the reasons, like make the case. But when you joke about invading, you just sound like Russia, and you just sound like China, or you just sound like Iran, you just sound like North
All you can
Korea.
do is laugh, man. It's it's
You know,
ridiculous.
so we think we're different. I think we think we're more civilized. And I think I guess I'll sort of close with this. My overall view of politics and the difference between conservatives and liberals is that I come from the conservative. I believe that people are inherently bad. I think that we're flawed. I think that people will pursue power if there's not a check against it. Like these are all things that I just think are human nature. And so I want a system that blocks that from happening to the best of its ability. And I think that we think we're better than people 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, pick the time. And I don't think we are.
No.
I think that in a lot of ways we are, like, things are better. We've got technology, like people live longer, people are like, fewer people are starving, fewer people are in poverty. Like there's all sorts of good things about the world today. But when it comes to the human heart and power and just all that stuff, I don't think we're really any different when you look at what's going on in the Middle East, when you look at what's happening with Russia and Ukraine, you look at China, you look at even just us and the way we've turned politics into an us versus them, and let's get all the power we can, and violence is okay against my enemy because they're evil. I don't think we've really evolved as much as we think we have. And I think that until we say, like, I think Americans, because that's the only people I can talk about, is like us as voters, until we say, actually, I don't want someone, like, I don't trust the government to have control over what free speech is. I don't trust unchecked power. I don't trust like Congress just relegating all of their power to the executive branch, even when it's someone in there that I like. I think until that changes, until we actually change our view on human nature and stop trusting people in power in like without question, that we will like keep slipping down the slope. I think in combination with we don't have a World War II style crisis that will wake us up. And I keep thinking things will be that. I thought COVID might be the thing that makes us go like, oh, here's just a virus. Like no one's the bad guy necessarily. Now, I mean, we can blame, like we can talk about like where did it come from, like lab leak theory, all this kind of stuff, and talk about like there might be blame to go around. But like we went into camps. It was like, instead of going, hey, we could actually like save lives, we could do things the right way, we should look at data, we should look at science. We just went into our camps and said, I'm on side this and you're on side that, and we are enemies. And it was like,
humans are going to always be human, Blake, period.
Exactly.
They're always going to take an opportunity. You can't ever, no matter how many years we've been on Earth and may have evolved as a people, for some reason we can't stamp out jealousy, the desire for power, or money.
Really,
currency, whatever that currency may be. You know?
And like I mentioned, I'm a Christian, so I mean, I find all of this in like spiritual. Like, I mean, I think that really it goes down to it's like it's the deadly sins. I mean, it's like it's envy, it's lust, it's power, it's like it's all the things that we've been struggling with.
The 7 deadly sins
for the entirety of human existence, and when we don't, I think. It's like that happens, but not only are we not willing to, we're willing to call things evil that I don't think are really evil. But we don't really call out real evil when it's there. It's a weird juxtaposition of being able to believe like on the left that America is evil and there's no redeeming of it because of slavery. But at the same time, like every person deserves, like is a good person. I'm like, well, those two things can't really exist at the same time. Like all people can't be inherently good, and like our entire country and everyone that's ever lived in it that's white is evil. Like you can't have both those things, right? But I don't think most people have wrestled with the contradiction there.
Well, it's like the devil could be right in front of you and you wouldn't recognize him.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the case a lot of the times now. And it's not even that you wouldn't recognize him, it's now you would celebrate him. Like
that too.
Frankly, which is what I think is the case if you celebrate someone murdering someone.
Yeah.
Ever. Like, there's very few people on this earth that I would celebrate their death. And most of them are those people that are oppressing, entire countries full of people or evil, or they're terrorists, or they're like, they are evil. And I think that we'd be better off without them.
They're an obvious problem or blight to humanity. I mean, it has to be.
But even then, I'd rather see Putin overthrown by his own people. And like that's what the solution isn't always
the solution
external.
To those type of problems, though. The people need to stand up and rise.
It is. That gets really, really hard. And I do think those countries I think those leaders are scared of their people. I mean, there's 1 billion Chinese people. There's no way the government is not scared of those people.
That's a reality.
It doesn't even take a majority of them to have a real threat on your, like you could not. We always talk, like the common thing is always like, well, you can't, again, everyone thought Russia would just go in there and crush Ukraine. It turns out that when people are willing to fight for their country, it's like they're scrappy.
Yeah, that ain't so easy.
We had a real tough time fighting, a bunch of people in caves in Iraq and Afghanistan with like rudimentary weapons. Like we had the best technology in the world as far as that stuff goes. And we are having trouble trying to figure out how to like stop roadside bombs from killing our like IEDs and stuff. Like it is.
All right.
Military might's not always all it's cracked up to be.
Is all right. Where's the bright spot? How are we gonna fix all this, man? Like we've been going for
I know for
quite
a long
few
time.
hours.
I've been bad at this. I need to start.
No, you're fine, man. You're fine. I have no problem talking for a long time. And I think some of my episodes will go 2 to 3 hours easy.
I think the bright spot, if there is one, it's not. You're not going to like the bright spot. I do think that in a real crisis, people can wake up and realize that, and just totally change. I mean, I don't think it takes. I think there's some ways that we need to do gradual change, but like convincing people that we should change the way we elect, like do primaries. Like I don't have a real, like I think that that's a problem, but I also think it's unrealistic to think that that's going to go away. I think the same thing with the congressional stuff. It's like, I think all that stuff you said is true, but I think it's going to be hard to convince Congress to vote for their own pay cuts and
I know
and
that
job.
won't happen, yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was a pipe dream. It was just,
but But I do go like, what has worked in the past? And unfortunately, the thing that works in the past is we get attacked by Japan at Pearl Harbor, and it wakes us up to understanding that like, oh, this is real, and this is not just something that's happening somewhere else that we feel like, it's not our thing to deal with. And people stepped up. It's not just that we got into World War II. It's that like we sent off all our men to fight for other countries. Essentially, I mean, like I know we got attacked by Japan, and but like the Europe stuff had nothing. I mean, not nothing to do with this. We just kind of said like, okay, we got to fight this war on two fronts and help our friends out.
Right.
The women go to work. We changed factories from cars to weapons. I mean, like it was the whole nation got behind that thing. I think 9/11 was kind of one of those things.
But isn't it sad that conflict, like wars, are the only thing that unite us as a people?
Yeah, it is.
Like, is there not any other reason?
Well, I mean, I do think that at some point things can get bad. And I mean, I think a fiscal crisis could also do the same thing. Great Depression. And I think we are heading towards something like that with the debt we have. It's unsustainable. At some point that will
matter of time
collapse. And that can be the thing. Like I said, I don't see any way that it's like we just slowly figure it out, because you mentioned going in all in on the lies earlier. And it's worked very well for Donald Trump. It's just like say it over and over and over again until people believe it. Democrats, instead of saying we could be a different kind of party, it's very obvious that they've just learned from that and they're just going to start doing that. Like that's the new thing. It's like, and so I think the lesson learned is a bad lesson. And I think, I think what people really want is authentic people to be their leaders. I think both parties have not figured that out. I think that if they just figured out, like if we run real, honest people, even if they have some opinions that rub people the wrong way, they're going to be refreshed by the honesty or whatever. It's like, I think people like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump because they were so authentic. I'm not saying they tell the truth all the time, but I think they're authentically themselves. They're not changing their accent. Donald Trump keeps the suit on at McDonald's. Like he's not getting on a flannel shirt to pretend he's a farmer. He's not going on a fake duck hunt or something. It's not him. He just won't do it. Bernie Sanders doesn't do it either. And I think that's what attracted people to those politicians. But I just don't see a way that we don't have some sort of crisis that gets us there. I hope it's not a war, but wars are traditionally the things that do galvanize people. But it could be
it might rally the U.S. like nothing else.
It could be an economic crisis. I mean, I think that's something that makes people wake up and demand stuff. We've seen that around the world. I think that there is a degree of like wanting to better. I think the one thing that I would say, I'm not big into the populist, like America First stuff, because I think most of it has seeds of racism underneath it, and they pretend it's not there. But it's really about, we don't like that white people aren't in charge. Like for the most part, that's where, again, we just keep pulling the thread, and that's where we always end up being. But I do think there's value in saying, like, I think we need to better define what an American is. And that's hard to do in half of the country, the sort of party that is capitulated to the progressive wing that says there's nothing redemptive about this country, can't define Americanism because they say it's evil. And the right side says, it's a bunch of stuff that doesn't really matter. Like I think that I'm a Christian. I don't think that I don't need the 10 commandments to be in schools for me to have security in the idea that like you can be a Christian in this country. Like we're not persecuted. The people that are pretending that Christians are being persecuted in this country are insane. Now they're really, actually, you want to see where they're getting persecuted. It's like China. Right. It's also where they're growing the most. So I'm just like, that kind of stuff bothers me, but like neither side will really define what Americanism is. So the right is saying, literally, I think, did JD Vance tweet this out? I might be wrong about that. Someone put a thing out the other day, it's pretty prominent, that was kind of like, here's the levels of Americanism. And it's like, if your ancestors came here in the 1500s, you're or 16, obviously you're more American than someone that came here last, you're a second generation American. And it's basically this way to say, here's this hierarchy of who's more American than another. And I'm like, that's
wrong. Talking about. I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, I saw that.
And it's very much a white nationalist. It's like, it's wrapped up in, we're pretending we're not being racist. But I think the better thing to define Americanism is like, we believe in free speech. If you come here If you want to come here and we vet you and you don't believe in free speech, we're going to say no. If you think you can shout down other people or you can use violence to shut down people, no, we're not interested in having you here. We believe in voting. We believe in democracy. We believe in federalism, whatever. We need to define that better. And I think the Constitution does a great job at defining this.
I think it's defined. We just don't stick to it.
Yeah, but I think that's the problem is that like if you ask what does it mean to be American to 100 people right now, you might get 100 different answers.
It's because they don't know. They don't know.
I think Britain's going through that too. I think that France is going through that. I think a lot of countries are going through that. And I don't believe that we somehow made assimilation a bad
honestly,
word.
we don't even know how to define our culture. Let's just be honest.
Right. And it's because it doesn't have, but like I said, it needs to be broad. Like I said, we believe in free speech. And if you don't believe in free speech, we don't want you here in America. Like that that's the litmus test. It shouldn't be your skin color, or your religion.
No.
You know what I mean? But there are people on the right that want it to be. And there are people on the left that say the exact same thing. They're just like, the white people are the bad people. You know what I mean? It's no different. Like anytime we say someone's skin color is the thing that defines them primarily, it's racist. It doesn't matter if you're saying it's good or bad. It's and so to me, I think there's like, we need to have a national discussion of like, what does that mean? Because I think we do need to think about, like, I want immigrants in this country, but I want to be selective about it. Like, I don't want someone coming to this country that hates this country.
Yeah, but I don't care that immigrants are here because we all were at some point. I mean, you could trace almost anyone's family. Yep. It's whether or not they are adding value and assimilating, period. Just as I would be expected to if I moved to another country.
Yep.
And we do have a culture. It's not a white culture, a black culture, a Mexican culture. It's actually an amalgamation of all. But I think what happened is there is an American way of life, but all these other cultures and immigrants came in and they added value and made it something unique.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. It's like we need to get back to preserving that.
And
not allowing someone who doesn't believe in free speech, as you said, to come in and just bulldoze that and then totally wipe it off the face of the earth and just start something anew because they just don't like America.
Yeah, and I think that there's a radicalization in grouping around people that are just like you, and that is whether you've got like Muslim communities that are maybe like we have in Minnesota. There's quite a bit of that, or you have in London kind of right now. Sometimes that's white conservatives. Sometimes that's black liberals. I mean, like, anytime you get with a group of people that all look and act and think exactly like you, extremism, like, it's like social science shows that like you're gonna get more extreme opinions that come out of that and more extreme examples. And I don't know how to force people to live by each other, but I mean, that's why I think cities are great, is because cities naturally don't let you not bump into people you don't like.
Yeah,
you live in New York City.
Those type of communities will always be there, Blake, because when you immigrate, you want to be around people that you're familiar with, speak the same language. Like they can learn English, but they're always going to be fluent in their native tongue.
Yep.
So I get why that happens, and I don't have a problem with that. There's always going to be sub communities.
But to me, it should be doing this. It should be spreading out. So like my wife I mentioned is Italian. Her family came over here. Obviously, like they lived in really Italian, those kind of things. Like when all Italians were coming over here and they were being discriminated against and stuff, they lived in these little groups of people that they're like-minded. But then they also started influencing the culture, not by like demanding that they influence the culture. It's like they started making like everything we think of as Italian food. They didn't have in Italy at the time because they were too poor. They didn't have meat. They didn't have meatballs and spaghetti.
It was made from ingredients.
It was made here because finally they like had the life where they could like cook with better ingredients.
Right.
And like, I mean, they influence, and so like their influence happened. I think of Italian because I just love Italian food. Like very food
Most
oriented.
people do.
Like same thing with Mexican stuff. It's like I love like Mexican food, taco, like all that kind of stuff. I love different cultures, like blending
that's
things.
Different. That's different than cultures who isolate and create their own communities for the sake of not wanting to integrate.
Isolation is the problem. Is when you don't try to move out and you don't let people in. That is always a problem. And like, that's always going to take decades too, by the way. That's never going to take that can't happen over the course of a couple of years. But I think of it like we have, I don't know if it's like I know we do. We have like a very high percentage of Asian Americans in Oklahoma because we were just one of the places during the Vietnam War and stuff that were just like, come on, I guess. I don't really know how it happened or whatever, but like we have an amazing Asian district and amazing restaurants. They're like like John Mulaney talked about like an Asian grocery store because, Olivia Munn's from here or whatever, and they're married. And like on the Tonight Show, you know what I mean? It's like, but that like they did it by like, and also there's a degree of like, we welcome and they wanted to be here and they like want their kids to get educated and they want their, like, I even look back at that and I go, I went to school with a lot of Vietnamese people whose parents came here and then they were born American citizens. All of them had like an Asian name and an American name. Like all of those parents like gave them we're going to give you an American name too. Because they wanted their kid to like, they knew that it was going to be different. That's hard to do with kids. I've never had to do that. I've never had to like take my kids to another country and be okay with like letting them become the definition of that country and abandon, because like that's a scary thing to do.
Well, like, a lot of cultures did that when they immigrated within a certain time. Because even my dad's side, when they came over, they're from the Azores and they're all Portuguese. And when they have kids, like me being one of those kids, that generation, they intentionally want them to speak English only. Didn't even teach them Portuguese for whatever reason, which they should have.
No, I don't love story. Like that we eliminated German as a language just because of World War II and stuff. Like we did some stuff. We've done a lot of stuff in America that I don't like the way we did that. But that's what I want. It's like Asian immigrants are a perfect example of like they are thriving because they come here for a better opportunity for their kids and they make sure that happens by like making sure their kids get educated and making sure that they, it's like they've done a good job. And by the way, that's like across the board Asian. That's Indian, that's Vietnamese, that's Japanese, like any immigrant. It's mostly, it's not a lot of Japanese immigrants because Japan wasn't, like bad in the 70s and 80s or something like that. They were, but Vietnam, India, you've got all these immigrants that like they, to me, do it the right way in the sense that like their goal is like, I think I can make a better life for myself there. That the land of opportunity. There's all these things that I can do there that I can't do here, and I want better for my kids. Everyone wants better for their kids, and like I don't think Black people get enough credit for like what drives me crazy about anyone that tries to pretend that like Black people are this problem is that like they've been Americans for longer than you have probably if you're white.
Yeah,
like your ancestors came here in the 1900s and theirs came here in the 1600s or whatever sometimes. And I'm not saying that makes them more American than you. It just bothers me that we discount like so often. And like I said, I'm just picking on the right because I think that's where most of the racism towards Black people is. And like I said, it's not normally that they would say they would never associate with Black people. They probably have Black friends, but they still think of them in this like monoculture. And that's the other thing we do too much is just like try to pretend all Black people are the same or all Hispanic people are the same or all white people are the same. It's like,
I think that also depends on the individual, like how you grew up, because when I grew up, I was not in an all white area necessarily. I was like, all my friends were Mexican and Black.
Yeah.
So I just have a different experience.
For sure. But even if you don't have experience with those people, like what you should want to do is have experience with and sometimes that's not possible. Like there's just not a big like I know like
I think
three Jewish
the fear
people.
is on both sides though. It's not just white people, for example. It's on both sides.
No,
because that message has been driven for so many years that we hate each other.
Well,
and
again,
so
by the way,
if you don't, you're suspicious. You're like, well, I don't know. I've heard.
Well, and keep in mind also something that's like biological is like scientifically, I can't tell the difference between other races as much as, and the same thing with me. I had a teacher, a substitute one time that was Korean or something. And, it's a bunch of musicians like me. We got long hair. And like, he was there for like, the like 2 weeks or something because someone was on their honeymoon or something. And so he kept taking roll and he'd like get us confused. And he was like, oh, you white people look the same to me. And we thought it was so funny. Because the truth is, it's like we do to them just like they do to us. And that doesn't mean you're racist. It's literally a biological thing in your brain. However, like my favorite story ever is of the guy, and I always forget his name. He was a musician, and he basically started like trying to convert Ku Klux Klan members. It's a shame that I forgot his name.
I know who you're talking about.
I'm gonna find it because but it's so amazing because what he basically decided, like, I'm going to just have conversations with these people. I'm going to invite them over for dinner.
Wasn't he a blues player? Played
Yes.
blues or something.
Yep.
Yeah. What was his name?
I can't remember his name. But he literally would just have these people over for dinner, like vehemently racist people that say and he has the hoods of all the people he converted that gave
He
him
was
up.
on. Wasn't he on Rogan?
Yeah, probably. I didn't see it, but I mean, to me, that is like
I just brought that because I might have triggered his name. I forget, but yeah, that was a great story.
the reason. What's so wonderful about that is like he had I would have discounted all those people. Like I would not have invited those people to dinner. Like I am definitely like a justice guy where I'm like, nope, you've got an evil opinion about something, and I'm discounting you completely. And the thing is, we're not just doing that with stuff like racism. We're doing that with you voted for Donald Trump. I'm done with you. You voted for Kamala Harris. I'm done with you. We're doing that with everything. And so we're isolating where we're like only going to be around people that we think like and look like. And I think his example is better. Is like, no. And now I think that's an extreme example. I'm not saying everyone should invite racists over for dinner.
Well,
like that's fine. Like it would be crazy.
no, but
if that happened.
it was a great example of going out and really, really, taking a situation head on and just saying, you know what, I know what I heard. I know what's out there. I'm going to take all this, push that bullshit aside, and I'm going to make these people talk to me, and I'm going to find out why they feel the way they do.
And what happened every time, I mean, I don't know if it was actually every time, but according to the
I think
dozens
most,
of
from
hoods he
what I
had, most of
recall.
them, yeah, is that like all of a sudden they're like having a conversation with a black person for the first time in their life. And they realize that, wait, we're a lot alike. Like you love your family, I love my family. Like
Right.
we have a lot of the same value. Like, and eventually just the scales fall off your eyes and you realize this is silly. And I have found that with political conversations. Like no one ends up, I'm not going to say no one ends up hating me, but I feel like every time I have even a very passionate argument with someone about something that I like strongly believe they're wrong on, like I think we can do that in America without vilifying the other side or thinking they're evil. Like I go into thinking, like I think that a lot of the progressive ideas are Looney Tunes, but I don't think it's because they want to destroy America.
Well,
I think they have I think underneath it, they have good intentions. Now, like good intentions don't matter at all to me because I've seen the horrors that come out of good intentions sometimes.
I've had the situation you're talking about before because on my show it's easy on even some of my earlier stuff for people to peg me as being some MAGA guy.
Yeah, and
then we get to talking and it's like they will come at me a certain way and then by the end it's like they realize it's not what I am, And again, I'm not really sure what I am anymore. I know I'm conservative, but I think I'm more like you. I'm not. I think I'm kind of homeless in that.
You got to treat people as individuals. We're not very good at that, at zooming out to a country of 330 million people and being able to talk as people as individuals, because that's really hard.
Not.
It's abstract. It's too hard to think. And so,
it's
like
easier
I said,
to compartmentalize people.
So we lump everyone together, and then we blame. If one person does something bad from that crew, we say that applies to all of them. Republicans are doing that with transgenders right now. Again, statistically. Yeah, maybe there's been 8 trans shooters, but like even then, like let's just look at the pattern. Most of them have been white, young, and male. Does that mean like so? What does that mean?
You're right.
So it's like, do we have to like? No, we don't have to do that. We can say that person behaved badly, or we can even say that like we think that some of the ideology influenced it. I think that's even totally fair to say.
True.
But to try to say like Donald Trump wants to take guns rights away from all transgender people, and like good for the NRA for being like, nope. We actually think that's not legal. You cannot take someone's Second Amendment rights away because they're transgender.
Well, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, sounds good because I went way too long.
No, it's fine. But here's to talking things out and coming up with ideas, and hopefully somebody hears some of these ideas, mostly from you, by the way, and implements these as solutions. But I have a feeling I'm going to be staying in touch with you, and I'm sure we'll have another conversation.
I need to have you on mine too. Yeah,
I'd be happy to, man.
I would love to have you on sometime, and we'll try to narrow the discussion because I try to keep mine to an hour because I just feel like most people don't want to hear me for any longer than that. But
that's okay.
I got to start giving myself a hard out, maybe, because otherwise I'll just talk about this stuff forever because I think it matters.
That's all right, man. Well, thank you. I'm sure, like I said, I know I'm going to be talking to you.
Yeah, for sure.
And of course, everybody, please check out Blake's podcast, Homeless Conservative, correct?
The Homeless Conservative. So that's on any of the podcast things, YouTube,
everywhere.
You know how the internet works. Type in The Homeless Conservative, I should come up.
If you could listen to my show, you could listen to Blake's for sure.
It's easy enough.
All right. Appreciate it.
I wanna taste your content, hold your breath and feel the tension. Devils hide behind redemption. Honesty is a one-way gate to hell.